A young woman with bright green eyes introduces herself from a bubbling cauldron as Hazel, the witch of the Black Forest. In a quiet moment, Hazel recalls a past life and a different name she hasn't heard in years. She remembers dying after falling into a river and waking up as an evil witch from a fairy tale. Adapting to her new world, Hazel decides that magic is the best part of her strange new life. She reveals a peculiar new hobby, baking cookies shaped exactly like little people. Hazel smiles brightly, finding joy in her baking. She explains her other hobby is sharing her human-shaped cookies, urging two nervous women not to reject the uncanny treats. As Hazel sweeps outside her home, a newsboy runs by shouting the latest headlines. A newspaper smacks her directly in the face. Stunned, Hazel reads the headline accusing her of baking a man, realizing the source of her terrible reputation. The narration confirms the townspeople call her the Cannibal Witch, showing them fleeing in terror from her cabin. Determined to change their minds, Hazel devises a clever new plan. She decides to build an irresistibly sweet and terrifyingly delicious house that no one could possibly ignore. Admiring her beautiful candy creation, Hazel feels confident that people will finally stop and visit. She imagines her plan succeeding beautifully, then dances with glee outside her completed candy house. Her plan works immediately as a woman cautiously approaches. Drawn by the sweet sight, Hazel is thrilled to have a visitor. The visitor, holding a basket, marvels at the delicious-looking house. Hazel warmly invites her in for more treats and tea, and the woman happily accepts a cookie. A moment later, the woman recognizes her, screams, "The Cannibal Witch," and flees, accidentally pelting Hazel with a mushroom. Hazel is left in silence, staring at the abandoned basket and spilled mushrooms on her table. Dejected, she looks down as the last mushroom falls from her hair. She flashes back to a lonely memory from her past life as a small child. In the memory, her grandmother comforts her, saying that what truly matters is living and eating well together. Shaking off her sadness, Hazel's resolve hardens, and her hand begins to glow with magical energy. With a flourish of magic, she conjures a magnificent spread of desserts and treats. Hazel decides to use her magic for fun, announcing her plan to make a lady today. She magically dresses up one of her gingerbread cookies, creating a gentleman and a lady pair. Squealing with delight, she admires the cute, animated gingerbread couple now dancing on the tray. An array of freshly baked goods fills the air with a sweet scent. Among the treats is a heaping basket full of warm scones. Hazel sets a perfect table for tea, surrounded by her delicious creations. She sighs, wishing she had someone to share the perfect moment with. She comforts herself by saying she isn't truly alone, as one of her gingerbread companions looks on. A black and white cat suddenly appears, ready to pounce on the unsuspecting cookie. Hazel quickly scoops up the cat, scolding her and introducing her as Daisy, promising a special cat-friendly cookie instead. Daisy asks if she can eat, while a yellow dog named Larity encourages her to accept the offer. Larity playfully warns Daisy not to gain weight while in his body, revealing a peculiar situation. Hazel smiles warmly while pouring tea, content despite her loneliness. She feels that as long as she has Larity and Daisy, everything is fine. Larity and Daisy lie together, both eyeing a small lemon tart. A diagram explains the truth. A dog's soul is in Daisy the cat, while a cat's soul named Larity is in the dog. It's revealed that the original witch of the house used forbidden soul-swapping magic in an experiment on the two animals. Hazel wonders what the original witch was really like, knowing only that this world is based on Hansel and Gretel. Holding a gingerbread man, she questions if she's fated to play the role of the evil witch who eats children. She cries out in frustration, feeling it's unfair to be cast as a villain in a story she doesn't even know. Her rant is cut short as something outside catches her attention. Her eyes widen in shock as she peers through the window at an unexpected sight. A boy with white hair and a girl with black hair stand by the window, happily munching on cookies. Overcome with emotion, the boy starts crying because the cookie is so delicious. Cradling a handful of treats, he tearfully begins to mention the evil witch. Listening from inside, Hazel wonders if they might be the ones she's been waiting for. She looks down thoughtfully from her window. A fairy tale book opens, signaling that the story has finally begun. Hazel sees the two children reflected in her own image, their fates now intertwined. A hand is shown holding two small, doll-like figures of the children. A small chibi witch floats against a starry background. A flashback begins with a hand reaching out from under the water as people yell for help. Drowning, the woman in the flashback regrets her recklessness, admitting she can't even swim. She finds peace in sinking, knowing the child she saved has a family to return to, unlike her. Despite her resolve, her last conscious thought is a desperate plea not to die. Kiak, She's jolted back to awareness by a skeleton playing peekaboo. Disoriented in a strange new place, she wonders where she is. She sees a desk covered with magical books, potions, and arcane instruments. Confused, she walks through the unfamiliar room towards a mirror. She's surprised to find herself holding a golden coin. Seeing her reflection in the coin, she's startled by her strange, new eye color. She realizes her voice sounds different as well. She stares into the mirror, taking in her completely new face. The golden coin clatters to the floor as she reels from the shock. She covers her mouth in terror, recognizing her face as that of the evil witch from the fairy tale. The memory clarifies. As she drowned, a glowing magic circle appeared beneath her. Her previous life is revealed. She was a kindergarten teacher by day and an illustrator by night. She recalls dismissing her own character design as not scary, only to be shocked by the final result. On a phone call, she admits her illustrated witch character is so terrifying that it's keeping her awake. The illustration of the witch is shown, the very same face she now has. Back in the present, the two children happily continue eating treats. Hazel watches them from her window, thinking something new has finally come along. The children turn and scream in terror, identifying her as the evil witch. Hazel points a finger, readying her magic. Floating helplessly, the two children look on in complete confusion. Tucking them under her arms, Hazel playfully scolds them for calling her an evil witch. Hazel smirks, feigning concern over the cookies they left behind. She insists they say thank you for eating from her house, but the girl retorts that the witch should be punished instead. Hazel agrees with a sly grin, adding that bad kids should also be punished. The girl defensively shields the boy, proclaiming that they aren't bad. Hazel looks down at them, coolly asking if they're saying they don't regret it. She brandishes a fork, terrifying the children, while internally fighting the urge to laugh at how cute their scared faces are. She offers them a choice of punishments. First, they can become her meal, or second, they can have a delightful tea time and cake with her instead. The two children are left completely stunned by the bizarre offer. The girl eyes her with suspicion, questioning if she really expects them to fall for such a trick. A loud growl from a hungry stomach ends the standoff, and Hazel tells them to go wash their hands. With the children finally eating at her table, Hazel struggles to hold back her laughter at how cute they are. Hazel cheerfully serves a slice of carrot cake she baked herself. The children react with disgust, both declaring they don't like carrots. Using her ventriloquism skills from her teacher days, Hazel makes a gingerbread man praise the honey-sweet taste of the cake, amazing the children. With the children happily munching away, Hazel smiles and gently reminds them to eat slowly. As they eat, the girl introduces herself as Luna and the boy as Luca, admitting the carrot is sweet after all. Hazel asks their ages, and Luna confirms she's 7 and he is 5, and that they are siblings. Relieved they aren't Hansel and Gretel, Hazel asks if their parents are worried about them. The mood darkens as Luca reveals their mom and dad threw them away. He finishes his heartbreaking sentence, leaving Hazel in stunned silence. The somber reality of their situation settles over the once cheerful table. The half-eaten cake now sits as a reminder of their interrupted innocence. A flashback to Hazel's past life begins, showing her as a kindergarten teacher. In the memory, she tells the class to give their handmade carnations to their parents. One child excitedly runs out yelling for her mom, but Hazel's younger self looks on with a sad, knowing expression. She remembers the child's mother had left an envelope with money, apologizing. The mother's note promised to return later, but the memory ends with the father also leaving the house. Back in the present, Hazel watches Luca's bright, smiling face. She realizes with a pang of sympathy that these children were also left behind, just like she was. She wonders why such beautiful children were abandoned, again questioning if they really are Hansel and Gretel. Hazel considers the fairy tale's plot, realizing with horror that for the story to end, they have to kill her. She fiercely rejects that cruel fate, determined to change the narrative. Deciding she wants a warm and desirable ending, Hazel vows to rewrite their cruel fairy tale. She resolves to take care of them until their father, regretting his actions, comes to find them. Hazel kindly offers the children some of her freshly made cookies. The children hesitate, but Hazel gently corrects them, asking them to call her Hazel instead of witch. She panics, pointing at the dancing gingerbread men and accusing Hazel of shrinking people and baking them into cookies. As Hazel tries to get them to wash up, the terrified children ask if she'll eat them right after. Trying to be logical, Hazel asks if they've ever seen someone dress a chicken after washing it to be roasted. The children look on, still scared and teary-eyed, as Luna admits she's never even seen a chicken being roasted. Realizing they must come from a very poor household, Hazel feels a wave of pity and decides to get chicken for them tomorrow. She wipes Luna's face and tells them to go play with the cat and dog while she cleans up the house. With a flick of her finger, Hazel uses her magic to effortlessly clean the house. The windows sparkle as her magic brings order to the room. Later, Luca and Luna are tucked into bed, sleeping soundly. Luca wakes up, his wide eyes taking in the unfamiliar but safe surroundings. He thinks to himself that the witch isn't that scary after all, and asks his sleeping sister for confirmation. Hazel stands quietly outside their bedroom door, listening in. Overhearing them whispering about the cannibal witch, she bursts in to playfully scold them for being up late, urging them to sleep. After closing the door, she lets out a delighted scream, thrilled to have them there. Her heart flutters with a happiness she hasn't felt in a long time. But as the joy fades, she admits to herself that despite their presence, she is still really lonely. The next morning, sunlight shines on the sweet exterior of the candy house. Luna wakes up with a gasp of horror, her face pale with shock. She realizes Luca wet the bed and panics, worrying that the witch will get angry and punish them. Luna tells Luca to stay put while she cautiously goes to check if Hazel is awake. She finds the main room and kitchen are quiet and empty. Spotting the front door, she wonders if this is her chance to escape with her brother. Luna laughs nervously at the thought, but her expression freezes when she sees Hazel through the window. Peeking outside, she sees Hazel talking to two other women and wonders what she's doing. Luna peeks from the window, wondering if Hazel is sneaking up on the women outside. In a flashback, Hazel hides behind a tree, determined to learn the truth about someone. As she watches two women chat, she wonders what they're discussing. A blonde-haired woman whispers a secret to her friend. Overhearing them mention the Grand Duke, Hazel's eyes widen in surprise. A powerful aura surrounds a man with white hair, identified as the Empire's only Grand Duke. Hazel recognizes him as the Grand Duke Elliot Blaine, questioning if her mental image of him is correct. The narration explains that Elliot Blaine inherited his title at a young age and has led the dukedom to thrive. Her thoughts are interrupted as someone spots her and screams, calling out the evil witch. The women flee in terror as Hazel desperately tries to tell them she's not evil and begs them to listen. She sadly looks away, whispering her own name, defeated by the villagers' fear. Back in the present, Luna nervously approaches Hazel to confess that Luca had an accident in bed. Snapped out of her sad memory, Hazel focuses on Luna, realizing the child needs her attention. Luna looks up at Hazel with worried eyes. Hazel laughs in surprise, wondering why he's so apologetic and if he was often scolded for it. To comfort him, Hazel invents a story about a water fairy making a pool on the bed as Luna looks on. Hazel gently asks if he was nervous, but Luca reveals it's because his rabbit Lulu isn't there. Luna clarifies that Lulu is his rabbit, then reveals that he wets the bed even with Lulu around. Hazel asks where their house is, planning to use her travel magic to retrieve the rabbit for him. Luca blurts out that they don't have a house, and a panicked Luna quickly covers his mouth. Hazel stares in shock, processing his words. Luna explodes in frustration, shouting that their house burned down, and that's why they're here. While Hazel hangs laundry outside, Luca timidly asks if she's angry and if she plans to eat them. Hazel playfully offers not to eat them if they help her pick mushrooms in the forest. Terrified by the idea, Luca cries that mushrooms taste bad, and he refuses to go. Hiding behind a sheet, Hazel fights the overwhelming urge to bite his cute face, wondering if she's truly evil. Finishing the laundry, she cheerfully leads the children into the forest, telling them to hold hands. Luna asks nervously if they're being led to be sacrificed, but Hazel quickly dismisses the notion. Hazel points to a cluster of mushrooms, suggesting they pick just 10 of them. When Luca asks how much 10 is, Hazel smiles and shows him all her fingers. Luna admits it's their first time seeing mushrooms, explaining they were always locked inside their house. A shattered image reflects their isolated past, explaining why they only know proper table manners. With newfound understanding, Hazel smiles and suggests they visit the village. Luca and Luna's faces light up with pure joy and excitement at the invitation. Hazel enthusiastically describes all the fun things they can do, from eating good food to watching street performers. She creates a magical sparkle with her fingers, leaving the children mesmerized. Beaming, she promises they will do everything they were never allowed to do at home. Luca sadly mentions it would be nice if their older brother was there, catching Hazel by surprise. Luna quickly scolds her brother, worried Hazel will take them back, confirming Hazel's suspicion that the burnt house was a lie. Hazel reflects on their tragic circumstances, feeling deep pity for the abandoned siblings. A single white flower blooms in a field, marking a quiet moment of transition. Arriving in town, Hazel excitedly asks the children where they'd like to go first. She leads the two small children by the hand through the busy village streets. They approach a dressmaker shop where two women are standing inside. Hazel recognizes one of the women, thinking wryly that a witch visiting a dressmaker must be a shocking sight. A tiny fairy magically puts a shoe on Hazel's bare foot. She resolves that in order to care for the children, she must find a way to get along with the villagers. Putting on her friendliest smile, Hazel cheerfully enters the shop to buy clothes and shoes for the children. The two shopkeepers stare in surprise and fear as Hazel presents Luna and Luca. One shopkeeper panics that the children are kidnapped and refuses the order, while the other urges her to take the money and get rid of the witch before they are turned into frogs. Shocked by their rudeness, Hazel angrily asks if this is how they treat all their customers. An incensed Luna stands up for Hazel, shouting for them to leave, which surprises Hazel. An elderly woman calmly approaches, reassuring a younger shopkeeper who warns her to stay away. The woman observes how neat the children are, concluding they must be good kids, earning a grateful thank you from Hazel. Luna stares with wide, thoughtful eyes, seemingly touched by the woman's kindness. Reaching out, Luna gently tugs on the elderly woman's clothing. Hazel excitedly shows off some dresses, gushing that the children are so pretty they must have imperial ancestry. Overjoyed, Hazel picks out numerous outfits for Luca and declares they need to buy even more. As they prepare to leave with their purchases, a shopkeeper nervously wishes them a safe trip. Luna happily thanks Hazel, but then curiously asks how witches even earn money to buy so many things. Hazel bluffs that she sells jam and mushrooms, though she privately admits it's a lie. In a flashback, Hazel remembers her true source of income, discovering a massive hoard of gold coins in a dark basement. As she reflects that the money isn't truly hers, she overhears two women discussing a bounty offered by the Grand Duke. Luna and Luca admire their new clothes, with Luca holding up a small blue shoe. This is an example of an unhelpful response to the user. It does not provide enough information or context for the user to understand what is happening, and it does not offer any solution or next steps. Additionally, it contains jargon that may be unfamiliar to the user, making it even more difficult for them to comprehend. The response could be improved by providing a more detailed explanation of what went wrong, offering specific troubleshooting steps, or suggesting alternative actions the user could take. In order to make a good decision, it's important to understand the different options available and how each one could impact the outcome. A shocking revelation spreads through the town. The Grand Prince and Grand Princess have been kidnapped. Realizing the kidnapped children are Luna and Luca, Hazel wonders if she can use her teleportation magic to find them. Hazel approaches the gossiping women to ask for a description of the children who hide behind her skirts. Kaya. The women scream in terror upon seeing Hazel, leaving her utterly bewildered by their reaction. Luna's attention is captured by a toy rabbit in a shop window, which she excitedly points out looks just like Lulu. After Hazel buys the toy, Luca looks at it sadly, stating that there's only one Lulu, and this isn't it. Luca's disappointment is palpable as Hazel looks on with concern. Hazel pauses, her expression thoughtful and troubled by the situation. Luca tugs on Hazel's clothes, looking up with wide eyes and asking where Luna has gone. Hazel spins around in a panic, desperately calling out Luna's name. Fearing someone has taken Luna, Hazel breaks into a frantic run, with Luca holding on tightly. As she runs, Hazel recalls the news about the kidnapped Grand Princes, her panic intensifying. She suddenly skids to a stop, her eyes fixed on something ahead. Hazel finds Luna standing on a box, tearing posters off a wall. Approaching her, Hazel asks what she's doing and realizes she's tearing down a wanted poster. The camera focuses on the ripped wanted poster clutched in Luna's hands. When questioned, Luna fibs that she needed paper to draw a picture. Hazel gently chides her, explaining she only needed to ask, and Luna apologizes. While leading the children away, Hazel overhears villagers still gossiping about the Grand Prince's kidnapped children. Hazel listens to rumors that the Grand Prince went mad and wonders if the royal family was behind the kidnapping. The shocking rumors cause Hazel to trip and fall comically between the two children. Blushing, Hazel remembers another rumor. Despite his anger, the Grand Prince is famously handsome. A narration describes the Grand Prince's ethereal features, with silver hair like moonlight and eyes like amethyst. A portrait is shown of a handsome silver-haired man, the children's father, with a younger Luna and Luca. The narration adds that his handsome face was impossible for even the greatest sculptors to properly capture. The Grand Prince looks sadly at a mirror reflecting him and his children, the vision fading to show him alone. He turns away from the mirror, holding a dark stuffed animal and calling out, "Hey!" Looking at a pink stuffed rabbit, he quietly asks for its opinion. He holds the pink rabbit, whispering its name with a sorrowful expression, Lulu. The Grand Prince asks the stuffed rabbit where it thinks his children, its masters, have gone. He clutches Lulu tightly, worrying that Luca will suffer from nightmares without his treasured toy. A shattered image framed by dark roses reflects his terror at the thought of something terrible happening to Luna and Luca. Through a shattered lens, the Grand Prince's sorrowful thoughts drift over a memory of Luna and Luca sleeping peacefully. An aide's hand urgently shakes the Grand Prince's shoulder, trying to get his attention. An attendant bursts into the room, shouting that he's received a report for the Grand Prince. He breathlessly reports that children matching the description were spotted at a dressmaker's shop near the Black Forest. The Grand Prince listens with a hardened expression as the attendant confirms the children were even called Luna and Luca. After a happy moment with Hazel, the children's joy is shattered when a villager spots them, shouting, "It's the witch!" as a menacing shadow looms. The scene transitions with a sharp, abstract splash, signaling an abrupt shift in time or place. Night falls over Hazel's whimsical, candy-like house, nestled in the woods under a crescent moon. Inside, Hazel stretches contentedly on the sofa, planning to cook with the children the next day. She thoughtfully considers her hands, looking forward to drawing pictures with Luna and Luca. Hazel reflects on her lonely past, realizing that while time once crawled, it now races by with the children. A sudden noise startles Hazel from her thoughts as she sits up, alarmed. Luca appears at the doorway in his pajamas, his expression soft and sleepy. When Luca says he can't sleep without Luna, Hazel pulls him into a warm hug, reassuring him. Luna suddenly appears with her arms crossed, firmly declaring that she isn't asleep either. With a sigh, Luna comments on how unrefined it is for Hazel to sleep on the couch. Hazel awakens the next morning, a gentle and happy smile gracing her lips. Luna thinks back to their hardship, remembering having no food to eat and no adults for protection. She quietly admits to herself that in their situation, she would have cried immediately. Hazel gazes lovingly at the sleeping children, impressed that they managed to make it all the way to her. Luca stirs in his sleep, murmuring to Hazel and asking if they can stay with her forever. Overcome with emotion, Hazel's heart thumps at his heartfelt plea. She pulls the children closer and whispers affirm, reassuring, of course. As the children sleep, Hazel looks out the window and makes a prayer to the moon for their continued happiness. Thud! Her prayer takes a desperate turn as she wishes for the children's father to never ever find them. The scene shifts to the grim-faced Grand Prince, who has just arrived with his entourage. A promotional webpage displays a grid of various popular manhwa series. A recruitment banner for the Scanlation group is shown, seeking new members. Thump. Something heavy lands outside Hazel's candy house. Yawning, Hazel wakes up on the couch between the two sleeping children, complaining that her body is stiff. Bang, bang! Startled by a loud knocking, Hazel wonders who could possibly be at her door so early. She cautiously cracks the door open, peering outside with a worried expression. Swoosh! A sword is suddenly thrust at her face, stopping just shy of her neck. The Grand Prince glares down at her, coldly identifying her as, quote, the witch Hazel. He pins her to the floor with his sword at her throat, formally accusing her of kidnapping. The children wake up and rush over in a panic, as Hazel frantically thinks they can't see this. Hazel tries to explain it's a misunderstanding, but Luna defiantly shouts that the man is not their father. An attendant identifies the man as the Great Prince, confusing Hazel as she tries to process the title. Her mind races as she begins to connect the dots about who this man is. Her eyes fixate on the ornate, amethyst brooch pinned to his collar. Realizing why she found him so handsome, Hazel shakes her head, telling herself it's not the time for such thoughts. Luna and Luca stare in shock as Luna realizes they are the missing children of the Grand Duke. A flashback reveals the children's sheltered life, explaining why they had never seen mushrooms before. Hazel's questions about their past melt away with the sudden, stunning realization that they have been aristocrats all along. Surveying the scene, Hazel understands the gravity of her situation and thinks she's in a big mess. Luna furiously declares she'll starve if Hazel is executed, while Luca begs for her to be exiled instead. The Grand Prince childishly threatens to not eat carrots, only for an attendant to remind him he never does anyway. Horrified by his pettiness, Luna and Luca shout in unison for him to stop. The Grand Prince looks utterly stunned by the children's passionate defense of Hazel. Hazel discreetly pulls out a golden object behind her back as the Grand Prince eyes her suspiciously. An unseen voice fiercely accuses Hazel, asking what she did to her brothers. Hazel defensively tells the Grand Prince she only fixed the children's picky eating habits. An attendant recalls how difficult the children were, a feat no one else had managed. Two attendants speculate that Hazel used black magic, questioning the wisdom of threatening her with a sword before children. Deciding to remove the weapon, Hazel nervously thinks the Grand Prince looks ready to execute a chicken. Her hands reach for the sword, crackling with an unseen energy. As she touches the blade, Hazel is shocked by the powerful feeling that surges through her. Pat! A bright light flashes from her hands as a magical seal appears. The Grand Prince and his entourage stare in shock as the sword is replaced by a simple fork in Hazel's hand. As the Grand Prince demands an explanation, Luca bursts into tears, crying out Hazel's name. Why? Hazel's expression softens with worry at the sound of Luca's distress. Presenting the fork, she coyly offers to demonstrate her magic if he's curious. The Grand Prince scoffs at the fork, but Hazel confidently assures him it's no threat to a witch. She suddenly panics, realizing her piece of carrot cake is skewered on the fork's tines. Composing herself, Hazel offers the cake to the Grand Prince, asking if His Highness would like a taste. A playful illustration shows Hazel offering the cake fork to a stoic Grand Prince. The Grand Prince orders an attendant named Daniel to take the cake for testing. In a flashback, a young girl thinks that Hazel was trying to turn them into puppets while being offered the same cake. As Hazel tries to lead the children away, the Grand Prince blocks her path, telling her she's not leaving. The Grand Prince reveals the children told him they had been locked up and abused. Daniel motions for the group to head to the carriage as the Grand Prince leads the children away. Hazel suddenly blocks the doorway, stopping the Grand Prince and the children in their tracks. The Grand Prince glares coldly, commanding her to open the door immediately. As an attendant offers to use an axe, Hazel recalls the promise she made to protect the children. Her resolve hardens as she tearfully remembers vowing to be their good guardian. The Grand Prince mentions the rumors of witches who eat children, causing Luna and Luca to shrink back in fear. He menacingly questions her right to make any promises to his children. He warns Hazel that if he finds any evidence of wrongdoing, she will be exiled. Luna and Luca rush to defend Hazel, clinging to their father and insisting she doesn't eat people. The children beg to stay with Nanny, desperately pulling on their father's clothes. Hazel is visibly touched, a warm and grateful smile spreading across her face. Kneeling down, she gently tells the crying children that it's time for them to go home. As the children cry, a voice tells them to have others read the letters if they cannot. Holding both children, the Grand Prince sternly asks if Hazel manipulated his brothers. The Grand Prince turns and leaves with his entourage, walking out of the house. Outside, an ornate royal carriage waits to take the children away from Hazel's candy house. Inside the carriage, Lucas sobs, calling out for Hazel as they prepare to depart. Crash Hazel suddenly slams against the carriage window, startling the Grand Prince and the children. She frantically presses her face to the glass, shouting for them to wait a minute. Her desperate plea to wait a minute echoes as she continues to pound on the window. The Grand Prince looks on with irritation, while the children stare with wide, hopeful eyes. Exiting the carriage, he asks Hazel what the matter is, but she warns him not to come out. Hazel stands before him, clutching a bundle of the children's belongings, including a teddy bear. The Grand Prince, now identified as Elliot, tells her they can't stay, but she shouts his name to stop him. Peeking out, the children beg Elliot to promise he won't kill Hazel and to take their other things too. Elliot sighs affectionately, calling the children his little peanuts, as Hazel looks on in surprise. He gently tells the children to get inside and to thank Hazel for taking care of them. Confused by his contradictory statements, Luna asks why he told them to thank Hazel if he thinks she manipulated them. With a deep blush, Elliot formally bows and thanks Hazel for safely protecting his younger siblings. Hazel beams with genuine surprise and delight at his unexpected gratitude. His expression hardening, Elliot adds that he still suspects she manipulated them, leaving Hazel stunned. The carriage begins to depart, leaving a solitary Hazel standing by the fence. Hazel watches silently as the carriage carrying the children drives away into the distance. Reaching out, she painfully recalls her promise that they would be together forever. As she stands alone, a cat and a dog nuzzle against her legs, one of them thinking her name. Hazel grieves over her broken promises to make them stew and raise bunnies on the farm. She reflects on how she never got to thank the children for bringing color into her once lonely life. A bright, genuine smile breaks through her sadness as she remembers the happiness they gave her. Wiping a tear, Hazel reassures herself and her animal companions that she'll be all right, entrusting them to watch over the children. As suddenly as they had arrived, the children were gone from her life without warning. The scene shifts to the sprawling estate of the Grand Duchy on a clear afternoon. A check on a slacking carriage owner reveals a blonde man flirting with a maid. In disguise, Luna and Luca scout the area with binoculars, confirming their plan is on schedule. With a determined cry, the disguised Luna and Luca make a run for it. A dizzy Luca urges his sister to hurry onto the carriage before they get caught. While hiding, Luna watches in shock as the flirtatious man from earlier waves goodbye to the maid. The disguised children realize with horror that the carriage is leaving sooner than they expected. A covered wagon pulls away from the stables, setting off on its journey. Inside, Luna celebrates their successful escape, telling Luca they can now go to Hazel. The curtain is suddenly ripped open by Elliot, who coldly declares, "Not on my watch." Luna and Luca freeze in place, their faces masks of pure terror and shock. Elliot scolds the children, stating that he wouldn't be fooled by the same trick twice. As Elliot holds the captured children, a maid apologizes profusely for her lack of vigilance. Elliot orders a thorough search of everyone leaving the duchy, adding a ban on tuxedo cats after Luna's failed escape attempt. Elliot instructs Daniel to have a meal prepared and to have all the ingredients carefully inspected. At the Grand Duchy, Elliot sits at one end of a long dining table, the sullen children at the other. Elliot pleads with the children to end their hunger strike, reminding them he kept his promise not to kill Hazel. Defiantly, Luca demands another chocolate to break his strike. Elliot refuses, exasperated, but the children shout back that they simply won't eat at all. Frustrated, Elliot buries his face in his hands, finding his siblings' antics more difficult than the Emperor's schemes. He puts his silverware down, reflecting on why he must keep such a close eye on them. As a chef serves strawberry juice, Elliot's inner monologue reveals his constant fear for the children's safety. A dark vision shows the children submerged in red liquid, symbolizing the unknown dangers that could harm them. A nervous chef asks if he should bring out that dish to tempt the children. Looking defeated, Elliot gives a weary sigh and agrees. The chef is shocked, wondering if the children could possibly like this particular menu. The chef resolves to serve the dish, determined to prove his cooking is better than the witch's. Clatter. A lid is lifted from a grand serving dish, revealing its contents to the children. Luna and Luca stare at the meal before them, their faces contorted with absolute horror. The children's shocked expressions are emphasized as they recoil from the sight of their dinner. The controversial dish is revealed, a hearty beef stew filled with vegetables. Elliot notes with disdain that the chef included carrots, which he considers a banned ingredient. The chef sweats, determined not to be outdone by the cunning witch who managed to feed the children. With great hesitation, Luca raises a spoonful of stew containing a piece of carrot to his lips. The entire household watches in stunned silence as Luca eats the carrot first, a truly unprecedented event. While the chef weeps with relief, Luna declares the carrots taste bitter. Elliot corrects Lunabelle Blaine on her manners, but she sarcastically rephrases that the carrots taste of dirt. Disgusted, Lunabelle lectures the chef, Harold, insisting that carrots must be chopped into tiny pieces and boiled completely. Luca quietly objects, saying they wanted to eat Hazel's carrot cake. Elliot sternly reminds Luca that it's already been 10 days since they brought the cake home. Thump! Lunabelle grabs Lucas's hand, telling him it's time to go as they get up from the table. As the children run off, Elliot stands and angrily shouts that mealtime isn't over yet. Thump Elliot slams his fist on the table in frustration, left alone in the grand dining room. The scene shifts to the Duchy estate at night, drenched in a heavy downpour. In Luna's room, Elliot informs the children they will have no dinner as punishment for their disrespect. Huddled together, Lunabelle defiantly states that it doesn't matter. Stunned, Luca gasps as Elliot threatens to take away their chocolate for a month as well. The children declare they don't need chocolate either, though Luca seems to hesitate before agreeing with his sister. In unison, they shout at Elliot, demanding he bring back their nanny. Elliot angrily asks why they chased their last nanny out, recalling the haunted woman they hired who quit shortly after arriving. Lunabelle screams that she's talking about Hazel, not the other nanny. Puzzled, Elliot wonders what the witch did to them. Remembering how they treated all previous nannies as enemies, Luca demonstrates how Hazel gently patted his back, which Elliot misinterprets as hitting, while Lunabelle complains that Hazel doesn't nag like he does, causing him to inwardly fume. Elliot coldly accuses Hazel of luring them with her sweet candy house. Furious, Lunabelle jumps up, challenging Elliot to inspect her for missing parts and sarcastically asking if Hazel ate them. Staring at his defiant siblings, Elliot trails off, saying, "Luna, you really..." Elliot shuts down the idea with a firm and absolute no. Lunabelle complains that he always says no, and never allows them to do what they want. Elliot internally reflects that he can't always do what he wants either, as he is summoned away by news of a letter from the Emperor. As he leaves, the children throw a jewelry box and shout for him to get out. They yell for him to go away just like he did last time, leaving him to pause thoughtfully. He understands they're referring to his expeditions. Recalling how he thought of them the entire time he was gone, walking down the stairs, he thinks to himself that he already knows their feelings. He accepts his duty as the eldest, the head of the duchy, and the only one who can protect them. He reflects that no matter how righteous he tries to be, sometimes the burden is overwhelming. The scene shifts to Hazel's candy house, standing alone in the pouring rain. Looking out the window at the storm, Hazel sadly admits to herself that it's lonely. She sits inside, remarking on the rain as her cat and dog stay close by her side. When the dog wonders when the children are coming back, Hazel teases the cat for also getting attached to them. A soft, knowing smile crosses Hazel's face as she remarks that attachment is a truly scary thing. A brief flashback shows the spacious Grand Duchy and its kitchen filled with food. She recalls trying to comfort herself with her beloved carrot cake after being reassured. Now, holding her cat, Hazel realizes with sadness that she's no longer able to eat carrots. Knock knock! As she discusses the impossibility of a witch adopting a child with her pets, a knock sounds at the door. Remarking on a recent increase in guests, Hazel gets up to answer the door. The dog growls that she should make their visitor beg, leaving a confused Hazel to wonder what it means. Her eyes widen in pure shock as she sees who is standing on her doorstep. Stunned, Hazel recognizes her visitor, exclaiming, "Again, Grand Duke?" A turbulent, rain-streaked pattern sets a tense and somber mood. Standing face to face in the rain, Hazel is shocked by the unexpected return of the Grand Duke. A flashback to a few days ago shows Elliot being handed a decree from the Emperor, summoning him for service once again. Daniel looks at the Imperial summons with clear disdain for the Emperor. Elliot sits at his desk, his expression firm and burdened by the command. Daniel reminds him he hasn't been home a month, and Elliot laments how frequent the expeditions are, prompting Daniel to suggest his survival is the problem. Overwhelmed, Elliot sighs, worrying about what will become of his siblings if he has to leave the duchy again. Daniel interrupts his thoughts, presenting the requested report from the alchemist and pharmacist on the contents of the carrot cake. Elliot calmly reviews the alchemist's report, letting out a thoughtful, When Daniel asks if they found anything, Elliot confirms the report states, it's just an ordinary, harmless cake. Still suspicious, Elliot wonders if it's truly just a cake, while Daniel insists the witch must have used some unknown magic. Elliot concedes that the official report found nothing, and Daniel admits he couldn't sense any magic either. Despite the lack of evidence, Elliot's determined gaze shows he remains deeply suspicious. He questions why a wicked witch would care for children without expecting anything in return, as Daniel mentions rumors of her being a cannibal. Daniel recounts local legends of Hazel, turning villagers into frogs and transforming grapes into mice at a festival. He adds to the dark history, mentioning a rival witch who got on her bad side and died mysteriously. Elliot recalls that Hazel's evil deeds stopped after her appearance changed years ago, which Daniel finds suspicious as Elliot notes they have only one day before his expedition. A memory of Luna shouting for Hazel to come with them instead of a nanny flashes through Elliot's mind. His hand rests firmly on the desk, his resolve hardening. Elliot abruptly asks Daniel about his past as a holy knight, leaving him momentarily flustered before he confirms it. The scene shifts back to Hazel's candy house, where she finds Elliot standing at her door in the rain. Elliot stands stoically on her doorstep as she stares at his imposing figure. Hazel internally wonders why he is there and if he brought the children with him. Her hopes fall as she realizes he came alone, noting the presence of only one horse. She observes the solitary set of footprints leading to her door. Elliot breaks the silence, addressing her as Miss Hazel and questioning her thoughtful pause. He steps forward, startling Hazel, who shrinks back in alarm. Hazel's imagination runs wild as she pictures a skull and a potion, convinced he wants her to use forbidden magic for him. She turns her back on him, curtly declaring, "I'm busy." Hazel announces to her cat, Daisy, that they're going mushroom picking, leaving a bewildered Elliot to question her strange behavior. Holding her basket with her pets at her side, Hazel decides that if he's here about the children, there's nothing more to discuss. As they step outside, the sun suddenly breaks through the clouds, ending the downpour. Now wearing a red cloak, Hazel looks up in surprise at how quickly the rain has stopped. Annoyed, she turns to find Elliot still following her and asks why he won't leave. Daisy excitedly notes that Elliot smells like the children, earning a sharp rebuke from Hazel to stop wagging her tail. As Hazel continues to scold her cat, Elliot dryly comments that talking to herself only makes her look more suspicious. Spinning around, Hazel confronts him directly, demanding to know why he is following her. Elliot smiles disarmingly, explaining that while he's busy, he just wants a quick word with her. "Ah!" Hazel snaps back irritably, telling him to just go home then. She reflects on her own coldness, admitting she's annoyed at the thought of how he must have mistreated the children she fondly remembers. Hazel asks where they're going, and when Elliot replies the forest, she points out they're already in it. She lets out an exasperated sigh, finding him incredibly annoying. With a menacing smile, Hazel sarcastically declares she's taking the Grand Duke deep into the forest as a sacrifice to the great demon. Her dark joke leaves Elliot utterly speechless and wide-eyed with shock. Amused, Hazel notes his shocked expression is just like Luna's, while a trembling Elliot demands she not lie to the ruler of the land. Her attention shifts as she spots a patch of mushrooms, relieved to find some still available. He asks why she's picking those particular mushrooms, and she states the obvious, to eat them as they are simple webcaps. Elliot smirks, wondering if she's being cautious because of his presence, and tells her to go ahead and gather what she needs. A different, poisonous mushroom is shown, a deathcap amanita, noted to be fatal with even a single bite. Catching his implication, Hazel glares and offers to serve him plenty of the poisonous ones, shocking him with her retort. Her attention is torn away as Daisy climbs a tree, and she yells in panic for her cat not to mess with the beehive. A close-up shows angry bees emerging from the hive, flying directly at Daisy's paw. Reaching her breaking point, Hazel shouts in frustration that she can't take this anymore. Suddenly sensing a murderous aura, Elliot quickly draws an arrow and aims his bow. He swiftly moves in front of Hazel, telling her to get behind him for safety. The air crackles with a palpable and dangerous killing intent. Seeing the arrow aimed in her direction, Hazel freezes in terror, convinced he's finally gonna kill her. Whirling around in fear, Hazel stammers, convinced he is about to attack her. Swoosh! An arrow streaks through the air with deadly speed. With a flash of light from her hand, Hazel screams that she can't take this anymore. Breathing heavily, Elliot mutters that he blocked it, while a confused Hazel realizes the arrow wasn't aimed at her. The true target is revealed. A massive bear with glowing eyes emerges from the trees behind them. Both Hazel and Elliot stare in wide-eyed shock at the sudden appearance of the bear. As the bear lunges, Hazel frantically calls for Daisy while Elliot curses their terrible luck. Elliot furiously accuses Hazel of helping the bear and demands to know if she summoned it. Outraged, Hazel yells back that if she'd summoned it, she certainly wouldn't be running away. Elliot draws a knife, telling her to step aside, but she points past him, shouting that Daisy is over there. Yelling, "Take this!" Hazel hurls the entire beehive directly at the charging bear. The beehive lands perfectly on the bear's head, stopping it in its tracks. Winking triumphantly, Hazel gives a thumbs up as the dazed bear stumbles away. Her victory forgotten, she anxiously turns her attention to her pet, asking if Daisy is hurt. Elliot, holding Daisy safely, coldly asks if she would have preferred the bear to have attacked him. He steps closer, causing Hazel to blush as she thinks he's standing too near. Flustered, Hazel wonders aloud why she would wish death on a man she's only seen twice. She internally theorizes that he must be paranoid, which would explain his treatment of his siblings. Hazel looks at him determinedly, stating that if he truly doesn't want her dead, then he should listen. Elliot cuts her off, cynically asking if she's trying to win his trust. With a pleading, "Please," Hazel unleashes a blast of energy, screaming at him to get lost. The magical blast triggers a sudden downpour, forcing them to take shelter in a nearby cave. Inside, Hazel insists she doesn't care about his trust, and just wants to be left alone. Elliot asks if she used weather magic to cause the storm, but she flatly denies it. Annoyed, Hazel looks back at him, wondering why he continues to follow her. Elliot brushes his wet hair out of his face, his expression unreadable. Hazel watches him, unnerved by his silent, intense gaze. A single drop of rain trickles down Elliot's neck as he stares back at her. Elliot murmurs that he understands why her appearance changed, leaving a bewildered Hazel to ask what he means. Hazel silently recalls that the witch's appearance had indeed changed suddenly. Remembering it was after receiving gold from a strange man, she confronts Elliot about his plan, but he coldly dismisses her concern. The tension breaks as Daisy licks Elliot, prompting a shocked Hazel to question what kind of cat likes water. Panicking that he'll find out her secret, Hazel tries to yank a towel off his shoulders but fails. Giving her a withering glare, Elliot asks what she's doing as she suggests he use the towel to dry off. Hazel magically starts a campfire, insisting he dry off and promising she's not going to eat him. They sit in tense silence around the fire, waiting out the storm inside the cave. She yelps in annoyance as he shakes his wet hair, splashing water all over her. As the fire crackles, Elliot privately wonders if someone so immature can truly care for children. He watches her intently as she begins roasting a mushroom over the flames. Elliot questions what she's doing, then declares her mushrooms are his since they grew on his land and begins eating one. Glaring at him, Hazel decides that if he wants to play dirty, she has her own methods. Elliot quietly observes her, musing that most women would never think of attacking a bear. Using magic, Hazel conjures a slice of cake, defiantly explaining, "I'm a witch." Elliot taunts her, asking if he could have cast a puppet spell on the cake she's eating. He asks what she'd do as his puppet, and she earnestly replies she'd visit the children at the Grand Duchy. Taken aback by her single-minded focus, Elliot asks if that's all she ever thinks about. Changing tactics, he demands to know how she managed to bribe the children into liking her. Hazel simply smiles, holding her cake and ignoring his accusatory question. Elliot sarcastically asks if he should thank her for not turning him into a frog, but she states she doesn't do such things. Elliot stands, his tone turning serious as he declares it's time to get to the point, admitting his curiosity about her. Elliot states that people don't change overnight, and it's not easy to abandon one's past. He directly confronts Hazel, asking why she has suddenly decided to become a good witch. Hazel looks back at him, his declaration that people don't easily change echoing in her mind. With a stern gaze, Elliot presses his question, wanting to know the reason for her sudden change of heart. Flustered, Hazel awkwardly claims that getting sick years ago made her regret her past and decide to live a good life. Elliot bluntly states he doesn't believe her, his intense gaze unsettling Hazel, who internally questions why he would come alone to see a witch he distrusts, especially after he ate her food without hesitation. She remembers that even on his last visit, he brought only a few nights with him. As Elliot stares into the fire, lost in thought, Hazel confronts him, asking if he's there to interrogate her. He turns to her, confirming his curiosities about her. Hazel nervously asks if he plans to execute her, but he dismisses her fear, stating he's there to ask for a favor. "I knew it," she declares, startling Elliot, who asks if she has clairvoyance, to which she sarcastically retorts, "Do I look like I do?" She explains it was obvious from the moment he started calling her Miss Hazel, and he begrudgingly admits she's sharp. With a resolute expression, Hazel firmly declares her answer to his favor is no. Elliot calls her rude for rejecting him without hearing his request, but she fires back that he should apologize first, leaving him to demand, "Apologize for what?" She points an accusatory finger, shouting that he falsely accused her of using forbidden magic. Elliot looks away, momentarily speechless. He turns back with a serious expression, admitting it was a false accusation and formally apologizing for making it without evidence. Stunned by his quick apology, Hazel wonders just how important his favor must be. Hazel presses her advantage, demanding he also apologize for keeping his siblings from her when she knew how much they missed her. He claims he didn't know they were her siblings, a statement she inwardly admits she wouldn't believe either. Hazel defends her actions, explaining she had heard the children were being abused and refused to return them to such a situation. His expression darkens instantly as he repeats her word, abused. She explains the children felt trapped in the house, which shocks Elliot, who can't fathom why they'd prefer her cottage to a mansion. He lists the estate's luxuries, hundreds of rooms, gardens, even a lake, and challenges her, asking if he is truly a worse guardian than a witch. Hazel bluntly points out that trying to execute her in front of the children doesn't exactly make him a great guardian. Elliot concedes the point, admitting with a sigh that he completely lost his mind back then. Hazel passionately argues that all children, noble or not, need to experience the outside world. She reminds him how much they loved playing in the forest. While he seems to understand her point, Elliot counters that nobles have duties and cannot simply live for fun. Hazel questions the necessity of such strict limits for children, arguing they need a variety of experiences, a sentiment her cat wholeheartedly agrees with. Elliot uses her own argument against her, noting her knowledge of mushrooms proves her point, recalling how the children almost ate poisonous ones. With a knowing smirk, Elliot observes that it seems Miss Hazel has experience raising children. A hazy memory of caring for other people's children flashes in her mind as she thinks that she can't return to those days. Hazel nervously explains there was another reason she couldn't easily send the children back. She reveals that the children told her he had abandoned them, stunning Elliot into silence. Hazel quickly tries to dismiss it as a child's misunderstanding, while Elliot buries his face in his hand in frustration. Elliot admits it was a misunderstanding, but concedes it was partly his fault. He explains that his duties, including violent expeditions and subjugations, have frequently kept him away from the mansion for long stretches of time. He concludes that it's not surprising his siblings felt abandoned, as they are shown looking sad and lonely. Elliot looks at her earnestly, insisting his siblings' safety is his top priority and asking her not to misunderstand his intentions. Watching him, Hazel realizes that the Grand Duke genuinely cares deeply for his siblings. Her budding, positive thought is shattered as he sips his drink and casually remarks, "No poison, it seems," immediately infuriating her. Stirring his cup, Elliot gets back to business. He begins to state his request, admitting it sounds crazy to ask a witch for this. From behind Elliot, Daisy's ears perk up with curiosity about the Grand Duke's mysterious favor. Elliot formally asks Hazel to temporarily become the children's nanny while he is away on his next expedition. He waits pensively for her response. Hazel lunges forward, grabbing his face in her hands and screaming, "Seriously!" Shaking his head vigorously, she ignores his pleas to calm down, as he notes her suspicious eagerness. Confused, she asks what he means by her hands, but he clarifies he meant her reaction, then gives up, stating they simply don't understand each other. Now ready to go, Hazel grabs Elliot's hand to pull him along, but he asks where they're headed. She gleefully announces they're off to the Grand Duchy to see the children, but Elliot dryly points out that it's still raining. As the rain continues to pour outside the cave, Hazel realizes her mistake. She sheepishly smiles, admitting she got a little too excited about seeing the children again. Later, at the Grand Duchy, Hazel looks down uncomfortably at her new maid's uniform. Gazing at her reflection, she thinks the outfit truly makes her feel like a servant in the household. Wham! A towering stack of papers is slammed onto the table in front of her. Hazel stares in horror, shocked to learn the entire stack is just part of the service regulations. A headmaid informs her that an inspection test will be held in a few hours, causing Hazel to cry out in disbelief. Anxious, Hazel nervously asks the headmaid when she will finally be able to meet the little ones. The headmaid sternly corrects her, forbidding her from using such vulgar terms for the nobility, though Hazel privately thinks they're just cute. As the headmaid rattles off a dizzying list of strict rules, including reporting all encounters to Sir Daniel, Hazel becomes utterly overwhelmed. Having collapsed onto the table from exhaustion, Hazel is stunned when the headmaid blandly announces she has passed the test. Hazel questions a rule prohibiting her from eating with the children, arguing that sharing meals is the best way to form close bonds. The headmaid dismisses her point, adding a new rule to avoid giving the children overly sweet desserts. Recalling the sweets Hazel provided, the headmaid suggests anyone could use such a simple trick to win favor. Hazel explains she only gave them sweets because they were starving and agrees with limiting sugar, prompting the headmaid to note her experience with children. Seemingly relieved they can communicate effectively, the headmaid offers to show Hazel to her room. The headmaid leads her down a long, opulent hallway. Creak. She opens the door to Hazel's new quarters. Hazel gasps, her eyes wide with utter shock at the sight before her. The room revealed is incredibly spacious and lavishly decorated. Hazel wonders aloud if all nannies are given such luxurious rooms, and the headmaid explains that excellent conditions are necessary to attract staff. She gazes pensively at the large, ornate bed. Hazel confesses she finds such a large room uncomfortable and would prefer her cozy cabin. Memory surfaces of her sleeping simply on the floor, as she reflects that she no longer likes being alone in a large space. The headmaid accepts her preference, but then questions why Hazel arrived without any of her belongings. Laughing cheerfully, Hazel explains that as a witch, she can always make whatever she needs. The headmaid unceremoniously throws a new uniform at her, ordering her to get dressed and report for duty immediately. Standing outside the now closed door, the headmaid announces that the chef requires her assistance. Hazel wonders why the chef would need her help, but realizes the headmaid has already departed. In an office, Elliot sits at his desk across from a man with black hair wearing a purple cape. Elliot listens with a confident, knowing smirk. He internally muses that it's clear Sir Daniel of the Arwen Marquisate is not in his right mind. The man, Daniel, stares back with a stern and serious expression. Slamming his hand on the desk, Daniel angrily demands to know why Elliot brought a witch to be a nanny. Outside the room, two maids whisper nervously about the tense atmosphere, with one explaining what caused the commotion earlier. She recounts how all the servants were in an uproar when the Grand Duke returned on horseback with Hazel. She continues her story, explaining the staff's shock upon realizing he hired the infamous man-eating witch as a nanny out of apparent desperation. Daniel informs Elliot that rumors are spreading fast that he has been bewitched by the witch. Elliot coolly asks Daniel for his own opinion, and Daniel reluctantly admits it doesn't seem that way at the moment. Revealing a glowing artifact, Elliot states it is more than sufficient to monitor the witch's activities. As Daniel looks on in confusion, Elliot tells him to listen carefully to his plan. The two men face each other in a moment of intense, silent confrontation. Daniel's eyes widen in disbelief as he processes what Elliot just told him. He questions Elliot's decision to leave him behind for a dangerous beast hunt. Reminding Elliot that he has protected him since childhood, Daniel asks what mission could possibly be more important than that. With a serious gaze, Elliot reveals the true, more important mission: to monitor the witch. Daniel's expression changes to one of understanding as he realizes Elliot's plan, noting that his power as a holy knight can suppress her magic. Elliot smirks, complimenting Daniel for catching on so quickly. Elliot addresses Daniel by name, reaffirming that protecting his siblings is his absolute highest priority. Elliot coldly clarifies that Hazel is just a tool to be used and discarded once he returns. Relieved, Daniel accepts Elliot's plan to dismiss Hazel after the expedition. Elliot privately admits to himself that there is something strange about the witch he just hired. As a horse trots, Elliot's thoughts drift back to his ride with Hazel. In a flashback, Elliot asks Hazel if she has any conditions for her employment, which confuses her. Hazel's voice echoes her disinterest in money, stating she doesn't need any compensation. She cheerfully tells Elliot to spend his money, presumably on the children. Elliot is taken aback by her genuinely selfless response. Back in the present, Daniel asks what he was thinking about, but Elliot dismisses the question. Thinking the head maid is a strange person, Hazel exits her room to find the chef. Overwhelmed by the mansion's size, Hazel wanders the grand hallway, realizing she is completely lost. Her attention is caught by someone down the hall. She stands frozen in the opulent corridor, staring at the approaching figure. Hazel continues to watch as the person gets closer. Her posture remains tense as she waits in the hallway. Suddenly bumping into Daniel, she fails to recognize him at first. Hazel suddenly remembers him as the one who took her cake, while he sternly reminds her not to wander. After she explains she was summoned by the chef, a flustered Daniel reluctantly offers to guide her. As they walk, Hazel asks his name, and he formally introduces himself as Daniel, captain of the guards. Realizing Daniel's long-standing connection to Elliot, Hazel comments on his lengthy service. Daniel proudly declares that he has served the Grand Duke longer and more closely than anyone. Warning her not to try anything foolish, Daniel coldly tells Hazel he is not her knight. Hazel cheerfully accepts his warning, privately thinking he seems like a loyal person despite his cold demeanor. Having arrived at their destination, Daniel announces they are at the kitchen, leaving Hazel wondering why he seems annoyed. Hazel gazes into the busy kitchen, completely amazed by the scene. As kitchen staff whisper about the new witch nanny, Hazel overhears the rumors have already spread. A chef with a goatee eyes her suspiciously, confirming if she is the new nanny. Daniel formally introduces Hazel to the head chef, Harold. Harold explains he summoned her to ask what the young prince and princess would like for dinner. A shocked Hazel realizes the Grand Duke himself delegated this task to the new nanny. Harold explains that the children are picky eaters, but will eat well if their favorite ingredients are mixed into a beef stew. Harold scoffs at the suggestion of a commoner's beef stew, and Hazel worries she has offended him. Challenging her expertise, Harold points to an empty counter and gives her just 20 minutes to cook a dish. Hazel and Daniel cry out in disbelief at the impossibly short time limit. Determined not to fail, Hazel steels her resolve to cook for the children. Poof! She magically summons a basket of fresh ingredients, stunning Harold and the other chefs into silence. Daniel frantically questions where the ingredients came from, but Hazel simply replies, "From home." Pulling out a small device, Daniel scolds her for bringing in ingredients without a proper inspection. Hazel cleverly points out that the rule wasn't mentioned in the nanny manual she was given. After instructing her to follow protocol in the future, Daniel uses his device to test her ingredients for poison. He explains the device is a poison testing reagent supplied by the Wizards Guild. When Hazel offers to bring her own testing reagents, Daniel curtly tells her there is no need. The test comes back negative for poison, and Hazel celebrates her small victory. With her ingredients cleared, Hazel beams with confidence, ready to begin cooking. The scene shifts to the elegant dining room, where dinner has been served. Elliot arrives for dinner, followed closely by Daniel and the two children. Peeking from behind a door, Hazel grows nervous upon seeing the children enter the room. She observes the children's tense expressions as they stare at the food, noting the heavy atmosphere. Hiding, Hazel wonders when she'll be introduced, but worries her presence might distract the kids from eating. From her hiding spot, Hazel notes how fancy the professionally prepared dinner looks. She anxiously compares it to her own dish, worrying that its simplicity stands out in a bad way. Peeking through the door, Hazel frets that the Grand Duke will immediately notice her out-of-place meal. Startled, her eyes widen as she hears a voice from the dining room instruct someone to start with her dish. At the head of the table, Elliot's gaze is fixed intently on the doorway where Hazel is hiding. Elliot turns his head slightly, his sharp eyes locking onto her position. Daniel asks Hazel what's wrong, while she silently panics, wondering why Elliot is staring at her when she's not supposed to be there. As Elliot cautiously lifts a bite of her pasta to his mouth, Hazel wonders if he's checking for poison. He eats the pasta thoughtfully, his expression showing subtle approval. Grinning triumphantly, Hazel turns to a shocked Daniel, certain that Elliot found her cooking delicious. Daniel mutters that they'll need to retest the dish, prompting a flustered Hazel to quiet down, worried she might startle the children. Elliot instructs a maid to serve Hazel's dish to the children, and to bring him another portion as well. A maid places the plate of pasta in front of the young prince. A fork twirls the noodles, a hopeful sign that the children are finally eating. The young prince and princess eat with full cheeks, clearly enjoying the meal. As Hazel gushes over how cute the children are, Daniel coldly reminds her that for her, there is only poison. The young princess happily tells Harold that it's the most satisfying meal she's had in a long time. When Harold admits he didn't cook it, she insists that whoever did must make all her meals from now on. Peeking from the doorway, Hazel sees Harold's downcast expression and feels a pang of guilt for inadvertently threatening his job. Elliot watches the scene unfold with a faint, satisfied smile, while a maid reminds a boy named Luca to chew properly. Hazel steels herself, expecting a lecture from the Grand Duke. After the meal, the maid announces dessert, and the children light up with excitement. An assortment of adorable, animal-shaped cookies and treats is presented. A voice calls out, "Hazel," as she confidently prepares the sweets with a swirl of magic. In a title card image, Hazel happily serves her homemade treats to the smiling children. The young princess's eyes widen in recognition as she stares at a familiar-looking cookie. Both children look up from the table with expressions of pure shock and joy. Hazel beams as she opens the dining room doors to greet the surprised children. Overjoyed, the children abandon their seats and rush to give Hazel a heartfelt hug. Closing her eyes, Hazel is deeply moved as the children tell her how much they missed her. She begins to cry from happiness while the children gently try to comfort her. Elliot sternly calls out the children's full names, Lunabelle and Lucas, warning them to return to their seats or forfeit dessert. Daniel apologizes for the nickname, but Elliot waves it off, admitting it's hard to get through to them. Elliot's expression turns serious as he informs Hazel that he needs to discuss something with her. Hazel fumes internally, thinking that the Grand Duke is the one who truly needs etiquette lessons. Later in her room, Hazel stands before a mirror, wondering what Elliot wanted to talk about. She sighs, thinking she was just starting to get used to her new life here. In a flashback, Elliot angrily lectures Hazel, demanding she wear a more noticeable outfit. She opens her wardrobe to find it completely empty. An idea strikes as she recalls a specific detail from the nanny rulebook. She realizes with a smirk that there's no rule forbidding her from connecting her cabin to the mansion. Using her magic, she opens a shimmering portal in her room, revealing her pets waiting on the other side. A dog and a cat leap through the magical doorway, joyfully calling out her name. Hazel greets her pets, promising to explain everything that has happened. The scene transitions to a peaceful night view of the Grand Ducal Mansion. The dog questions Hazel about her pay, jokingly asking if she had to beg for forgiveness instead. Hazel clasps her hands together, a wide, excited smile on her face. After asking where the children are, the cat explains it tucked them in, and Hazel decides to see them tomorrow. As the cat curls up on its back, the dog expresses its relief that Hazel created the portal to her cozy cabin. Hazel gasps, suddenly recalling a mansion rule against tuxedo cats and wondering what the commotion is. After a door bursts open, Hazel finds Luna, Lucas, and her pets huddled on her bed, asking what happened. Luna and Lucas, with shocked expressions, explain that it's scary to sleep all alone. Hazel thoughtfully recalls that Luna and Lucas's room is significantly larger than her own. With a bright smile, Hazel suggests that they all have a sleepover in her room for the night. The children cheer with joy as the cat happily leaps through the air in celebration. As they settle into bed, a maid addresses the children formally, but they quickly insist she not call them Little Lady and Little Lord. Crying, the children tell Hazel they felt hurt while she was gone and plead for her to comfort them. Hazel tenderly apologizes, calling them her little nuts as she comforts Lucas until he falls asleep. From the hallway, a voice remarks how they've missed the sound of that laughter, as Luna asks for her turn to be comforted. Hazel explains she tried to go to Luna, but Lucas stopped her. Luna agrees that was the right thing for him to do. Illustrating with a scary story about a big bad wolf, Hazel warns the children never to run away again because it's dangerous. Sitting up in bed, Luna and Lucas earnestly promise that they won't ever run away again. Lucas looks up with wide, innocent eyes, his expression full of emotion. A wave of concern washes over Hazel as she realizes the children still don't know her position is only temporary. Deciding to get some rest, Hazel promises to make omelets the next day, and the children shout, "Yay!" Hazel and the children sleep soundly, snuggled together under the covers. In the kitchen, Harold curses under his breath, staring at the leftover pasta and wondering how such a basic recipe could be so delicious. Enraged by its devilish flavor, Harold vows to uncover the secret, only to be interrupted by an entering guard. A guard asks another kitchen staff member if the Grand Duke was seen, and he worries when told they haven't been seen at all. Elliot sternly orders his men to deploy more guards to the garden immediately. Elliot's eyes narrow in thought, questioning how the witch could be so careless with the children. The next morning, Hazel stands before Elliot, laughing nervously. Elliot angrily scolds Hazel about the chaos that ensued when the maids discovered the children's empty rooms at dawn. He continues his tirade, reprimanding her for letting them sleep with animals and asking if she can imagine his frustration. Hazel calmly holds up the rule book, pointing out there's no rule against it, which Elliot begrudgingly acknowledges. Elliot concedes that she does indeed follow the rules thoroughly, running his hand over the book. Just as Hazel thinks she has a solution, Elliot picks up a pen, declaring he has his own methods. Elliot smirks confidently, reiterating that he has his own ways of handling things. He declares a new rule. From now on, the children must be put to bed in their own separate rooms. Hazel responds to the new decree with a simple and immediate, okay. Borrowing his pen, Hazel cheekily asks if the tuxedo cat ban was instated because a cat named Daisy once invaded the duchy. She then pivots, asking if she can make a garden, which leaves Elliot completely dumbfounded. Elliot reminds Miss Hazel that her contract is temporary, but she retorts that she'll leave the crops behind when she goes. Leaning forward with a stern expression, Elliot flatly refuses, declaring he won't permit her to mess with the Grand Duchy. Hazel argues that the children's schedules are too packed, and that play, like harvesting vegetables together, is a form of learning. She offers to make carrot omelets for him as well, and a flustered Elliot reluctantly accepts. Sighing in defeat, Elliot leans back in his chair, completely exhausted by their negotiation. Elliot watches Hazel leave, now understanding why she isn't burdened by Luna and Lucas. He reflects that she possesses a unique mix of Luna's fierceness and Lucas's bright energy. Elliot concludes that she has more than both of them combined, yet follows rules perfectly, wondering if this is the only way to manage his siblings. A joyful image shows Hazel, Luna, and Lucas happily dressed in farming outfits. Hazel brightly suggests they train Elliot's stamina through farming now that there is a garden in the greenhouse. Daniel suddenly appears, stopping Hazel and reminding her that she only has permission to make a garden, not to train there. Hazel turns to the children, asking if they are ready, and they stare back with fierce determination. The children repeatedly chant "garden" at a flustered Daniel until he sighs and finally relents. As Hazel leads the excited children to plant broccoli, Daniel watches from a distance, muttering that he feels uncomfortable. Hazel cheerfully greets a startled gardener, announcing she will be in his care for the day. She looks around the greenhouse, exclaiming in wonder at the beautiful space. Hazel and the children happily begin planting in the soil, as Daniel stands guard in the background. Hazel passionately tells Daniel that there is no such thing as useless knowledge. A single, healthy seedling stands newly planted in the rich soil of the garden. Luna and Lucas laugh heartily, with Lucas declaring this is an experience that can't be learned from books. Lucas panics upon discovering a worm, and Luna screams in fright while Daniel looks on, unamused. The newly planted garden rows are finished and neatly arranged in the greenhouse. Hazel marvels at how quickly they finished, while Lucas excitedly says he can't wait to eat broccoli with Hazel, Luna, and his bunny Lulu. Lucas happily hugs his stuffed bunny, noting that Lulu has gotten dirty from their work. Hazel turns their gardening into a reading lesson, holding up a sign for broccoli, while Lucas excitedly identifies a green onion for Daniel. Lucas eagerly seeks confirmation about the green onion, and Daniel calmly affirms that he is correct. As Lucas celebrates, Hazel and Luna give Daniel a pointed, judgmental stare. Hazel brightly explains to Daniel how she's combined a fun gardening activity with a reading lesson, asking for his opinion. A slightly flustered Daniel concedes that her method doesn't seem that bad after all. With a warm smile, Hazel offers a freshly made sandwich to someone just out of frame. Daniel accepts the sandwich, looking momentarily speechless and surprised by the gesture. Luna cheekily asks if Daniel is a picky eater, but Lucas, with his cheeks full, confirms that the food is delicious. While Daniel takes a bite, Hazel slyly asks if he's busy, and if it's okay for him to be following them around. Still chewing, Daniel cryptically replies that his presence is all thanks to a certain someone. Hazel eyes him suspiciously, wondering if he's hiding something, or perhaps avoiding work with the Grand Duke. A voice suddenly interrupts, asking what they could possibly get caught doing as Elliot appears behind them. Relieved, Hazel admits he startled her before cheerfully offering him a meal with them. She confirms she has one sandwich left to share. Elliot's eyes narrow as he coolly states that he has already eaten. Hazel questions his claim, pointing out that he just returned from the luncheon. As Elliot confirms her statement, Daniel and Hazel exchange looks of complete bewilderment. The children run up to Hazel, excitedly asking for more food. Hazel tells the children to share the last sandwich, and Elliot looks on in shock as they reach for it. Clearing his throat, Elliot pointedly changes the subject, asking why the children are dressed like farmers. Hazel explains that getting their hands dirty while decorating the garden will help strengthen their immune systems. Elliot remains skeptical and states he will consult their physician, a Dr. Morris, on the matter. Announcing his departure, Elliot swiftly snatches the sandwich out of Daniel's hand, leaving him stunned. As Elliot walks away, Daniel laments the loss of his sandwich, while Hazel thinks she only had one bite of it herself. Elliot calmly strolls across the lawn, enjoying the sandwich he just took from Daniel. Smiling kindly, Hazel holds up another sandwich, revealing she had a spare. With his mouth full, Elliot curses under his breath, his thoughts consumed by the food. He is overwhelmed by how delicious both the sandwich and the previous pasta were. Days later, Daniel reviews a report in an office, concluding that there was nothing out of the ordinary. Elliot questions Daniel, who confirms there were no suspicious movements from Hazel, though he did observe some notable activities. Daniel recounts following Hazel to the marketplace, initially believing her trip was suspicious. Peeking from behind a corner, he saw her simply buying a handful of gifts for the children. Elliot recalls forcibly paying her, and he asks Daniel if she really returned the money to the children. Finding her impossible to understand, Elliot leans back in his chair, while Daniel prepares to add more to his report. Daniel warns Elliot that Hazel has a disarmingly likable appearance, and that he should be especially wary of her. He explains that her influence is growing, citing a recent incident he witnessed while patrolling the kitchen. In a flashback, Daniel watches as Harold desperately begs Hazel to sell him her secrets, offering a substantial payment. Harold kneels before Hazel, asking if she uses potions and offering to pay for lessons, but she calmly refuses the money. Daniel is shocked to see an experienced chef bow to a witch, just as Hazel offers to teach Harold her secrets for free. During their cooking lesson, Hazel explains her intuitive seasoning methods for the beef stew, much to Harold's surprise and awe. Hazel admits she finds Harold admirable for his willingness to learn from someone he might have once looked down on. Tasting the stew, Harold scoffs at being called unworthy, but smugly agrees that he is, in fact, quite admirable. Back in the present, Daniel's thoughts linger on Sir Harold as he stands outside the kitchen door. Elliot finishes Daniel's report, stating that he himself witnessed these sights. Scoffing, Elliot dismisses the idea of enjoying the witch's presence as laughable before pausing in thought. Elliot thinks of Hazel's food again, admitting that the thought of her sandwich makes him freeze up and succumb to gluttony. Hazel peeks into the office, cheerfully greeting Elliot and wondering if she's hallucinating. As Daniel prepares to leave, Elliot invites the devil in, his thoughts betraying his annoyance. With a brilliant smile, Hazel formally presents a small, locked wooden box to Elliot. Elliot stares at the offering, looking thoroughly confused and questioning if it's a gift. Hazel explains her belief that a first paycheck should buy gifts, confirming Elliot is someone she's thankful for. A flustered Elliot thinks she's making excuses for not buying a gold gift. Assuming she couldn't afford it, opening the box, Hazel reveals a gleaming silver locket, which Elliot mentally identifies as a necklace. Elliot inspects the locket, noting that its silver composition can detect poison and finding nothing suspicious about it. Leaning in with an encouraging smile, Hazel excitedly urges a hesitant Elliot to open the locket. Hazel points forward with a bright, expectant expression. Elliot recoils, completely startled by what he sees. As Elliot asks how she did it, Hazel explains that pressing a specific spot on the locket reveals a secret. Her fingers press a button on the locket, causing Elliot's eyes to widen as his heart thumps. Daniel's narration concludes that the number of people the witch has won over in the duchy is increasing. Tack Elliot slams his hand on the desk, startling Hazel as he angrily demands to know her trick. A bewildered Hazel denies any trickery, explaining she was only trying to open the locket for him. Elliot sternly warns her to keep her distance, privately admitting she has a likable face, but it won't sway him. Sighing with relief, Hazel cheekily assumes he's scared of her, while Elliot denies it in his thoughts. As Elliot holds the locket, a golden magic swirls from it, catching him by surprise. The open locket reveals a beautifully detailed illustration of Luna and a smiling Lucas holding his bunny. Elliot compliments the illustration, admitting he first suspected she magically shrunk the children, which horrifies Hazel. Looking closer, Elliot sees Hazel's reflection in the locket surface and thinks she drew them perfectly. Elliot graciously accepts the gift, saying it will help while he misses the children during his expedition. Hazel cheekily reveals that the gift is actually a bribe, leaving Elliot utterly stunned. She smiles sweetly, explaining her hope is to get along well with him. Recalling Daniel's warning, Elliot eyes the locket suspiciously, wondering if she's enchanting him with kindness. Elliot asks if the children know her contract is temporary, stating she couldn't handle Luna if they did. Hazel admits her concern that the children will be hurt, confessing she isn't against the idea of staying permanently. Elliot's eyes narrow as he realizes her true intention, his mind labeling her a witch. He accuses her of using the children to prolong her contract, which she frantically denies. Leaning over his desk, Elliot gives her a final, stern warning. Not a word of this to the children. Refusing the bribe, Elliot tries to return the locket, but a panicked Hazel insists it was a joke. Hazel quickly flees the room, announcing she's going to put the children to bed. Left alone with the locket, Elliot stares after her, muttering how bothersome the situation has become. Looking at the portrait of the children, he reaffirms his belief that he cannot entrust them to a criminal. He closes the locket, acknowledging that things may seem peaceful now, but his suspicions remain. Hazel cheerfully pushes open the door to the children's room. She finds Luna and Lucas sitting on the floor, looking up from their drawings and books. Noticing how dirty Lulu has gotten, Hazel decides to wash the bunny and asks Lucas if he'd like a bath with it. A memory flashes of a woman with white hair holding Lucas, who snuggles his bunny and thinks of his mom's smell. A concerned Hazel remembers her own past, recalling when her mother left her in elementary school. A flashback shows a young, pigtail-wearing Hazel looking on with a sad but resolute expression. In the memory, her grandmother throws out spoiling side dishes from the fridge, calling them a foolish waste. The young Hazel breaks down, screaming and begging for the food not to be thrown away. Shaken by the memory, Hazel suddenly pulls both children into a tight, emotional hug as Luna questions her. As Lucas asks if she is crying, Hazel holds them close, thinking how young they still are. Holding their hands, Hazel gently tells the children to let her know immediately if they ever want anything. Luna hesitates before asking Hazel a question, who prompts her to continue. Lucas whispers his desire into Hazel's ear. Hazel resolves to ask the Grand Duke about the children's requests the next day. At the breakfast table the following morning, Elliot wonders why he is all alone. Hazel arrives, happily leading a sleepy Luna and an eager Lucas by the hand. When Elliot asks if she is tired from fieldwork, Luna yawns and complains that her Bible study class is just incredibly boring. As a servant lifts the lid from a steaming dish, Elliot overhears a comment about the busy teacher from the papacy. Taking in the aroma, Elliot realizes the soup wasn't made by the chef. He takes a bite and smirks, admitting to himself that it's delicious. His thoughts compare the witch's cooking to a warm fireplace, melting away the cold. Elliot suddenly realizes how quiet the children are and looks over at them. Badump. His heart lurches as he finds both Lucas and Luna staring intently at him. He notes their unusually neat eating, a stark contrast to their normal noisy habits, as they all swipe their spoons in sync. Confused by their coordinated movements, Elliot wonders if they are imitating him. He glances away, completely bewildered by what's happening. From off to the side, Hazel suddenly shushes him, leaving Elliot utterly shocked. Annoyed, Elliot wonders what the witch is planning and decides to put her game to the test. He challenges the children by pointedly preparing to eat a Brussels sprout. Both children gasp in horror at the sight of the vegetable, and Lucas drops his fork. Elliot smiles with villainous glee, confident in his victory. Lucas and Luna groan in defeat. To Elliot's absolute shock, Luna resolutely eats the Brussels sprout. Lucas follows suit, much to Luna's determined satisfaction. Luna triumphantly declares that she won, causing a defeated Elliot to faceplant on the table. In disbelief, Elliot sits up, baffled that she won, and questioning the children's strange behavior. From the sidelines, Hazel enthusiastically claps and cheers for Luna and Lucas. Flinch. Elliot is startled as Hazel snaps her fingers right beside him. A flustered Elliot listens, as Hazel reveals it was all a contest. She cheerfully explains it was a game to see who could imitate the Grand Duke best. Elliot indignantly asks if he and his children are just clowns to her. Hazel explains that she designed the game to teach table manners through imitation, which is how children learn best. Leaning in, she flatters him by adding that his own manners are flawless, making him the perfect model. Swayed by her praise, Elliot smugly agrees before Hazel reminds him to choose the winner. Hazel excitedly suggests that he should also give the prize, reading a storybook to them tonight. Elliot scoffs internally, thinking she's a brazen nanny for trying to pass her job onto him. Hazel gently reminds him that he is leaving on his expedition tomorrow. She continues, explaining she simply hoped he'd make good memories with the children before his departure. With a kind smile, Hazel asks him to be sure to find out what the children truly want. After a moment of consideration, Elliot quietly agrees. Elliot formally addresses the table, and the children excitedly confirm they've finished eating. He claps his hands together, preparing to announce the winner of their dinner contest. Elliot formally congratulates Lady Lunabelle Blaine for her excellent behavior, calling it a great example for all noble children. He then commends Grand Duke Lucas Blaine for his commendable bravery in tasting something he dislikes. Smiling proudly, Elliot declares that both of them are the winners. Luna excitedly asks how they should commemorate their victory, quickly shifting her focus to the prize. Hazel smiles, privately noting how sharp Luna is. Elliot agrees to a prize and asks the young Grand Duke and Duchess what they desire. After forbidding chocolate and slacking off, Elliot urges a hesitant Lucas to state his wish. As Lucas whispers to him, Elliot grows suspicious, wondering if the child somehow discovered Hazel's temporary contract. In his mind, Elliot reels in utter disbelief at the children's request. He can't comprehend that after everything, their desired reward is so simple. The memory reveals their wish, to build a blanket fort and play with him. As he recalls the scene, he notes their fort was more than just blankets draped over furniture. He remembers Lucas's hesitation and wonders why the boy was so cautious about such a trivial wish. Inside the fort, Luna enthusiastically assigns roles for a game of dungeon exploration, with Lucas wanting to be the witch. Luna insists Lucas must be the wizard, since he's a boy, much to his disappointment. With a cry of, "Attack!" Luna and Lucas playfully order a bewildered Sir Elliot into action. Elliot feels a blush of embarrassment at being seen like this by Hazel, who watches with a knowing smile. Despite his initial reluctance, Elliot smiles warmly as he shares a happy hug with Lucas. Luna gleefully joins in, climbing onto Elliot's back as he plays along. Surrounded by pillows, Elliot fully embraces the moment, holding both children close. Completely exhausted from their game, Luna and Lucas fall fast asleep together. Elliot gently pulls a blanket over them, thinking they look like little angels when they sleep. Creak! He quietly leaves the room, intending to finish his work before the expedition. Hazel meets him in the hallway, remarking on how simple the children's wishes really are. Elliot admits with a soft smile that he was honestly surprised by their request. He confesses to Hazel that he no longer feels bothered by the things that troubled him before. Hazel explains that the children understand his busy schedule and often hold back their true feelings. She reveals they were watching the clock the whole time, noticing that he was also checking it repeatedly. In a flashback, the children look on with somber expressions, as Hazel explains they were watching him closely. She recounts how they selflessly told him to go work, saying they were ready for bed. Overwhelmed with emotion, Elliot realizes all he wanted that day was to be a good brother. The scene shows the children sleeping soundly, unaware of his inner turmoil. Hazel challenges Elliot, asking if he's ever truly asked what they want, arguing that while they need proper raising, they also need love. Hazel bristles, annoyed at having to listen to him defend himself to a mere nanny. Changing the subject with a sly smile, she offers to sell him a marvelous piece of art for the playroom. Elliot questions her sudden and absurd offer, but reluctantly agrees to see what she's talking about. Tapping her head, Hazel cheekily explains that the masterpiece is in her mind and asks if he can't see it. Elliot scoffs, calling her senile for claiming an imaginary drawing as a masterpiece. Stepping forward, Hazel closes the distance between them with purpose. She startles Elliot by grabbing the front of his suit, pulling him closer. She urges him to forget his work and focus solely on being their brother and guardian. Click. He opens the locket, finally understanding it was the masterpiece she was referring to. Hazel gently offers to put the locket on him, joking that he wouldn't like her casting a luck spell. She gives him a bright, meaningful smile as she holds the gift. The scene shifts to a quiet, moonlit hallway as she leaves. Walking away, Hazel feels a sense of relief for saying what needed to be said. She suddenly stops, noticing the familiar aroma of the Duke's favorite soup from the kitchen. In the kitchen, a frustrated chef asks Hazel how her soup tastes so different when they followed the same recipe. Hazel denies any trickery, though she admits the other chefs have also noticed the stark difference. The chef insists her stew has a special quality that no one else can replicate. Pondering this, Hazel admits her cooking skills have inexplicably improved since her arrival. As a dark witch-like shadow looms behind her, she wonders if this is her true ability. Humming happily, she dismisses the thought, deciding that everyone enjoying the food is all that matters. She fondly recalls the pride she felt seeing the kitchen staff, and Daniel relish her cooking. With a renewed sense of purpose, she happily decides to go check on the kitchen. A pot of delicious, steaming soup sits ready, a testament to her mysterious talent. Daniel thoughtfully analyzes the food, concluding it is definitely not the work of magic. In the kitchen, the staff panics, suspecting a potion was used, but a chef silences them, stating he watched the entire process. The chef voices his concerns to Daniel, worried about the food's safety, with His Highness's departure imminent. Daniel continues his inspection, musing that magic always leaves a trace, like a fingerprint. Gazing at his reflection in the broth, he feels a nostalgic warmth that seems to defy any magical explanation. Concluding there's nothing dangerous, Daniel turns to leave, but the chef urgently shouts for him to wait. The chef nervously asks about frog-turning curses, a notion Daniel dismisses as an obvious and foolish trick. Thump. As Daniel opens the door, he collides with Hazel, catching her with a shared gasp of surprise. A flustered Hazel apologizes, insisting she wasn't trying to eavesdrop on their conversation. She explains she was checking ingredients, and as Daniel invites her in, he has a sudden, shocking realization. Hazel looks utterly heartbroken, clutching her chest as tears well up in her eyes. As Hazel explains her reason for being there, Daniel's eyes widen just as her expression crumbles in distress. She stammers defensively, unable to find the right words as Daniel holds the door open. Thwack. Overwhelmed, Hazel shouts a final apology and flees down the hallway. Daniel is left speechless, while the maid and another staff member watch her departure in stunned silence. The kitchen staff whispers among themselves, certain that she overheard everything and relieved that she left so quickly. One of them continues to panic, wondering if she might turn them into frogs, but is cut off by a sharp "Hey!" The head chef glares at them furiously, commanding them to watch their mouths. The gossiping staff members immediately shrink back, offering a timid apology for their remarks. Covering his face in his hand, the head chef sighs in deep frustration, muttering, "Damn it." The scene shifts to Hazel napping on a couch in a sunlit parlor, her cat sleeping peacefully on her back. The cat asks Hazel what's wrong, but she buries her face in a pillow, claiming she's just tired. Pong, the cat calls her a liar, though she continues to deny anything is wrong. Lick. The cat begins affectionately grooming her face, causing her to laugh and protest despite her sadness. Hazel pulls the cat into a tight hug, sighing that at least she has her pets for comfort. She thinks of Elliot, firm in her belief that he would never intentionally harm his siblings. Lying on the sofa, she sadly concludes that people were only kind to her because of their trust in the Grand Duke. Her thoughts conjure an image of a cold Elliot, reinforcing her fear that he doesn't truly trust her. Deciding she needs a drink, Hazel gets up, frustrated that her kindness is always met with suspicion in this supposed fairy tale. She stares at her reflection, despairingly wondering why she was reincarnated as the story's villainess. A knock at the door startles her. She's shocked to find the head chef, Harold, has come to see her. Harold bows deeply, calling out to Miss Hazel with a profuse and sincere apology. Hazel quickly dismisses it, saying she understands his concern, but he insists that isn't the only reason for his behavior. Harold confesses that he felt inadequate next to her talent and shamefully looked for something to blame it on. As he keeps his head lowered in shame, Hazel simply tells him to lift his head. She smiles kindly, accepting his apology and admitting she's also wondered if she has an unknown power. A grateful Harold praises her generosity, but adds that he can't accept being forgiven so easily. He insists that it wouldn't feel right, leaving a surprised Hazel to wonder what he means. Harold presents a gift on a cushion, explaining he dislikes feeling indebted, as a flustered Hazel looks at the strange items. He reveals the bizarre gift is a snake's leg, a rare, magical ingredient he found by searching the entire vampire empire. Hazel stares at the item in shock as Harold explains it's a treasure that only appears once a century. She panics at receiving such a valuable gift, but he laughs it off, saying a witch like her might find a good use for it. He adds that she also seems blessed by the god of cooking, which leaves her blushing and speechless. Saying it's getting late, Harold bids her farewell and turns to leave the room. Just as he reaches the door, Hazel suddenly calls out for him to wait. He looks back with a warm smile as she invites him to join her in the kitchen tomorrow. Hazel smiles, filled with renewed determination, believing she can succeed if she just keeps moving forward. The following morning, the sun shines brightly on the grand facade of the estate. Luna and Lucas wave excitedly, shouting for their brother to come back safely. Elliot stands stoically before them, his expression unreadable as he prepares for his departure. Elliot looks down at the children, confused by their unusually calm farewell. He recalls how Luna would normally throw sarcastic remarks, while Luca bawled his eyes out. Still bewildered by their change in behavior, Elliot wonders what's going on. Instead of complaining, Luna cheerfully demands he bring back presents for them. An excited Luca calls out to his brother, asking for something special. Elliot asks if he wants a gift, but Luca shyly says he has another request for when he returns. Kneeling down, Elliot gently pats Luca's head. A warm, gentle smile spreads across Elliot's face. Luna beams back at him with a confident smile of her own. As Elliot begins to speak, Hazel peeks out, listening intently to his instructions. Elliot gravely addresses Luna by her full name, asking her to listen well during his absence. He kneels and takes her hand, leaving her with a look of utter shock. A smiling woman presents a tray of delicious-looking sandwiches. The scene shifts back to the grand estate, as someone asks, "What?" Hazel interjects, telling Elliot he can't place such a burden on Luna, who is still young. She smiles brightly, playfully wagging her finger at him. Elliot questions her protest, explaining that, despite Luna's intelligence, she cannot inherit the title. He reveals a dark truth. Granting titles to women was abolished due to past conflicts. Elliot tells Hazel that Luna just likes to act like an adult, referencing what she saw at the match. Hazel reassures him that Luna will mature and be proud of his belief in her. Elliot gives Luna a serious charge, to uphold the family's honor and serve as an example, shocking her. Despite his serious tone, Luna enthusiastically agrees, and they seal it with a pinky promise. Luna boldly declares she will act as a true lord, a statement that leaves Luca flabbergasted. A charmed Elliot chuckles to himself, marveling at her way with words. He pulls Luna into a tender embrace, kissing her forehead. He then gives Luca a warm hug, and the boy snuggles into his chest contentedly. Mounted on his horse, Elliot promises to return soon as the children wish him a safe journey. He glances back one last time with a confident, reassuring smile. Luna and Luca wave goodbye, while Hazel watches from the background with a gentle smile. Hazel reflects that she is showing the children love, just as the witch advised her. Elliot leads his retinue of knights away from the estate, down a long, tree-lined road. Sometime later, Luna strikes a pose in a beautiful new dress. Hazel claps her hands in delight, overjoyed by the sight. She thinks to herself that Luna has perfectly nailed her new role. All business, Luna announces she wants to discuss the week's chocolate distribution. Hazel firmly reminds Luna of Elliot's instructions not to use her authority for personal greed. Luna cleverly counters by suggesting they give everyone chocolate to celebrate her becoming lord. Hazel stares in abject horror at Luna's brilliant, unforeseen maneuver. She panics, realizing Luna and Luca will get to eat chocolate, and desperately calls out to them. Her panic quickly turns to awe as she declares Luna a genius, while Daniel quietly tells her to focus. Later, Luna advises Luca on how to eat his food, noting that his unexpected maturity is a recent improvement. Hazel smiles, though the narration hints that one thing has not improved at all. At a place called Hazel Hut, Luna exclaims her love for their lunches as Hazel reminds her it's a temporary arrangement. While Baby asks to take a puppy out, Luna playfully struggles with a cat. Daniel suddenly appears, sternly questioning how they got inside the Grand Barrier without permission. He looks around the area, still trying to understand the situation. Luna turns to him with a sweet, innocent smile and greets Sir Daniel. She cheekily asks if he isn't also sneaking in with them, leaving him completely baffled. Hazel watches, thinking that while other things have improved, Luna's sarcasm remains a bad habit. Luna retorts that her brother is sarcastic too, justifying her own sharp tongue. Hazel laughs nervously, telling Elliot she needs to talk to him about his language habits when he returns. A man in uniform smiles, saying Luna will never be lost because anyone can see she's Elios' sister. He and Luna look confused, as Hazel insists her comment was a compliment. As Hazel watches, she happily notes that Sir Daniel is speaking comfortably with the children. Lucas, holding his bunny, gets Hazel's attention and starts to ask her something. Hazel looks surprised and flustered by his question. She recalls being caught eating cold rice late at night, realizing the children have loved her fried rice ever since. In the present, Hazel agrees to the request, and a delighted Lucas celebrates with a "Yay!" whoosh. She begins cooking, expertly tossing rice and vegetables in a pan. She continues preparing the fried rice, confident that children will find it delicious. Wearing an apron, Hazel beams with pride and happiness. She presents the finished dish, topped with a heart-shaped egg. Hazel reflects on cooking Korean food secretly, worried about judgment, as a spoonful of cheesy rice is lifted. She feels grateful as Luna and Lucas gaze at the meal, eagerly asking what it is and calling it delicious. Hazel, Daniel, Luna, and Lucas all sit together at a cozy table, happily thanking her for the food. Hazel remarks how fun it is to eat together, and Daniel quietly agrees. She muses on the pity of children eating alone in a grand palace, remembering Daniel was initially hesitant. Hazel smiles warmly, happy with the current atmosphere. Danielle thoughtfully decides to try talking to Elliot, though he doubts he'll be heard. Hazel listens, thinking about what will happen upon His Highness's return. An endearing scene shows the children happily playing with a cat and dog. Daniel looks at Hazel with a serious expression, firm in his resolve. The scene shifts to the expedition, where a grand purple banner waves against a cloudy sky. Elliot addresses his soldiers, ordering a short break but telling them to stay ready. A knight holding a standard looks onward with a concerned expression. Two knights rest, with one whispering to the other, asking if the rumors about the Grand Duke having a girlfriend are true. His companion laughs at the absurd rumor, wondering who it could possibly be. The first knight continues to look thoughtful and serious. Elliot stands alone, looking off into the distance with a faint smile. Two knights gossip, with one asking who else the girlfriend could be. Thump. The other knight suddenly covers his friend's mouth in shock, pointing toward the Grand Duke. Elliot gazes lovingly at the open locket containing a photo of Lucas and Luna. He smiles fondly, thinking anyone would mistake the locket for a gift from a lover. As the knights speculate about a noble lady's picture, the locket clearly shows the two children. While his knights imagine a budding romance, Elliot simply thinks about how much he misses the kids. Sitting alone in the quiet forest, Elliot wonders if the children truly understand his feelings. A knight approaches, urging a distracted Elliot to eat his meal. Elliot holds a plate of bland-looking rations, with a distinct lack of enthusiasm. He forces himself to take a bite, grimly accepting it as part of life on the battlefield. He recoils from the terrible taste, finding it salty, sour, and sweet all at once. Longing for Hazel's cooking, Elliot imagines the children's Happy Meal and resolves to end the campaign quickly. A sudden shout for help from the knights shatters the moment, putting Elliot on high alert. A frantic woman rushes forward, begging the Grand Duke to save her child from man-eating bees. Elliot's expression darkens in shock at the mention of man-eating bees. An ominous illustration depicts a giant, monstrous bee, described as a predator of humans. A terrifying image shows a child curled up inside a nest, about to be fed to larvae. Elliot gently comforts the distraught mother, telling her there's still hope for her child. One of his men reports that scouts have already located the man-eating bee's nest. With grim determination, Elliot orders a search party to be assembled immediately. Elliot takes command, declaring that he will lead the rescue operation himself. A company of knights on horseback rides urgently through a dark forest. From his horse, Elliot spots their destination in the distance and shouts, "There it is!" Raising his crossbow, Daniel gives a firm command to his soldiers. Everyone take aim. The knights draw their crossbows in unison, preparing for the assault. A knight steps forward with a massive axe, declaring he will open the entrance to the bee's nest. A terrifying swarm of giant, monstrous bees emerges from the newly opened chasm. The knight's flaming arrows find their mark, successfully incinerating the bees in a fiery explosion. A knight rushes forward, holding a small child, shouting to Elliot that they found them. Elliot's expression explodes with joyous relief at the news. The knight reports to Elliot that, aside from a few scratches, the child is completely unharmed. With a gentle smile, Elliot reassures the child, promising to take them back to their mother. The knight screams in terror, desperately warning Elliot about a massive, fiery bee lunging at him from behind. Meanwhile, an innocent Luca holds a stuffed rabbit and asks how many more nights until his big brother comes home. A document reveals that the Grand Duke's return is indefinitely delayed by the Emperor's order to subjugate all the monsters. A nanny comforts Luca, telling him his brother will be back when the garden broccoli grows, which takes about 3 months. She offers Luca a warm and encouraging smile. Luca cheers happily, excited to see his big brother again soon. Back on the battlefield, Elliot collapses, clutching his chest in agony, as someone asks if he's all right. His knights rush to his side in a panic, realizing he was stung while protecting the child and shouting for a medic. Damn. Elliot curses his mistake, realizing the queen bee's explosion forced him to use a power he wanted to keep hidden. A healer rushes to his side, scolding him for his recklessness and warning that the poison nearly reached his heart. Elliot laughs through the pain, joking that it's a relief his face was unharmed. Nearby, a blonde man smirks, imagining the crown prince's frustration that Elliot would be handsome even in death. The healer gives the blonde man an unamused look. They coolly retort that unfortunately, the crown prince won't get the chance to say that at his funeral. They explain that the poison stinger didn't pierce his chest, revealing it was blocked by his locket. Stunned, Elliot clutches the necklace, realizing the witch's gift saved him. He holds the locket in his gloved hand, its face completely shattered from the impact. A memory flashes within the broken locket, showing a young Luna and Luca. The memory hardens Elliot's expression with renewed purpose. As Elliot tries to stand, the healer quickly stops him, warning him not to move so suddenly. Gritting his teeth, Elliot pushes past the pain and insists, "I need to return home." His thoughts drift to the image of Luna and Luca sleeping peacefully. For some reason, as he resolves to go back, Elliot is struck by a sudden, bad feeling. The scene shifts to the grand, peaceful-looking estate where the children are. Unseen, a mysterious cloaked figure watches the mansion from the nearby woods. As night falls, the mansion is cast in an ominous, dark shadow. Inside, the nanny stands with her arms crossed, looking thoroughly annoyed. She scolds the still energetic Luna and Luca, asking how many times she has to tell them it's bedtime. A caption playfully notes that the two children are as rambunctious as beagles. Sighing, the nanny gives in and tells the children to stop running and come to her room for a bedtime story. The children cheer with excitement, and Luna proudly holds up a copy of Thumbelina to read. In bed, the nanny praises Luna's reading skills before continuing the fairy tale herself. As she reads, Luca begins to doze off while Luna listens intently, completely absorbed. The nanny smiles softly, thinking everyone is about to fall asleep and she can tuck them in. Lost in the story, Luna whispers to herself that she wants to be Thumbelina too. Suddenly, the nanny's gentle expression twists into a chilling, sinister smile. A loud crash of thunder and lightning startles the children, who scream in terror. Outside the window, a fierce rainstorm has suddenly begun. The nanny groans in frustration as the children, whom she had almost put to sleep, are now wide awake and crying. With a pleading look, Luca peeks into the room and asks if they can sleep there tonight. Hazel recalls Elliot's instructions but decides it's crueler to leave the children alone in the dark. She enters the kids' room to check on them, calling for Luna, only to find her already in bed. Hazel asks if Luna is also scared of the thunder, but Luna confidently states she's there to protect everyone, though the dog reminds her she was scared last time. Flustered, Luna loudly declares that the head of a grand duchy can't possibly be afraid of thunder. Soon after their brave proclamations, both Luca and Luna are shown fast asleep. As Hazel sleeps soundly beside the children and her cat, she fondly recalls her first day at the estate. Crash. A sudden violent noise shatters the peace and jolts Hazel awake. Annoyed at being woken again, Hazel sits up and grumbles, "What is it this time?" Creak! She cautiously peeks out from behind her door with an irritated expression. Peering down the hall, she spots two men with swords and wonders if the guards are sparring. Annoyed, she imagines them causing a drunken scene and decides to identify them to report to Daniel later. As she looks closer, she has a sudden, jarring realization that she recognizes one of them. Her eyes widen in horror as she sees a panicked Sir Daniel defending himself with his sword. Kaya. She lets out a startled scream as a bright light momentarily flares around her. She watches in disbelief as the two men emerge from Luna's room, one of them collapsing as she recognizes their clothes are unfamiliar. Her heart sinks as she realizes, with dawning horror, that their clothes aren't the duchy's staff uniforms. A scarred intruder smirks at her, correctly identifying her as the nanny and demanding to know where the children are. Hazel flinches, her face etched with fear at the man's menacing presence. The intruder lunges toward Hazel, demanding to know where the kids are as Daniel desperately tries to hold him back. Daniel screams her name in warning as a terrified Hazel turns to flee with utter desperation. Daniel shouts at her, pleading for her to never hand the kids over to the intruder. As the man yells for Daniel to stop, Hazel desperately reaches for a nearby door to escape. Bang! She forcefully slams the heavy door shut, sealing herself and the children's room off from the intruders. Panting heavily, Hazel leans against the door in sheer relief, thinking that was a dangerously close call. As her pets ask what's happening, Hazel tells them she doesn't know, but their first priority is to hide the children. Her expression hardening with resolve, Hazel declares that they absolutely need to hide the kids. She urgently tries to wake the children, telling them they have to run away immediately. Still half asleep, Luca and Luna groggily ask why they have to get up. Realizing she can no longer carry them both, and with no time to spare, Hazel decides on another plan. With a quick motion, she pulls out a vial of pink liquid and calls out to the kids. In a stroke of genius, she asks if they want to drink some special strawberry juice that will turn them into Thumbelina. The children's eyes light up with excitement at the mention of strawberry juice and Thumbelina. Luca takes a sip, noting it doesn't taste like strawberries, just as a brilliant flash of light erupts. Both children cry out in shock as they are magically pulled into the potion bottle, shrinking rapidly. Now miniature, Luna and Luca stare in amazement from inside the bottle, exclaiming that they really became Thumbelina. The scarred man stares in stunned silence at the door Hazel just broke through. Now holding a hatchet, the intruder menacingly demands the nanny tell him where the children are, threatening her life. Hazel feigns ignorance, claiming she has no idea where the children have gone. She carefully hides the bottle behind her back, silently furious that he's brandishing weapons near kids again. The man explodes in a fit of rage, screaming at her to tell him where those bastards are. Hazel's eyes narrow with cold fury at his words. Her mind races, incensed that he not only woke her precious angels but also called them bastards, as the dog bites his leg. She softly tells Luna and Luca to stay put, which confuses the intruder, who wonders why she's talking to herself. An internal monologue reveals her fury has reached its limit. She can't hold herself back anymore. A brilliant green light erupts from Hazel's chest as a powerful energy surges within her. The magical energy explodes outward, shaking the very foundations of the grand estate. Eek! The intruder yelps in terror as the hallway crumbles and shakes around him from the force of the blast. He looks around in bewildered shock, questioning what just happened, but realizing that he himself is unharmed. A small green creature appears in the wrecked doorway, demanding to know if Hazel is joking and really wants to rig it. The confused green creature stares blankly. Crash. The creature is violently thrown out of the room as Hazel screams for it to get out. Hazel wonders about the strange light as a shadowy figure materializes ominously in the doorway behind her. 3 armed intruders enter the room, with their leader correctly guessing it's the nanny's room where the children are hidden. Glowing with power, Hazel points a finger and fiercely commands all of them to get out. The intruders' swords are magically transformed into giant scissors, leaving them utterly bewildered. Hazel watches in horror as her uncontrolled magic summons shadow figures, a cat and a dog, all wielding sausages, panicking one of the men. As more chaotic magic erupts, the shadow figures begin wielding vegetables, prompting the intruders to scream, "Witch!" Hazel despairs, recalling her promise to herself that she would never use magic like the evil witch had done. Her chaotic magic sends one of the intruders flying toward her. A single tear of desperation streams down Hazel's face. The dog leaps to her defense, viciously biting down on the attacker's arm. Snarling, the dog growls out Hazel's name in a desperate plea. A new man in uniform suddenly appears, telling Hazel she has done enough and can go now. He thanks her and offers to repay her with jerky, as the dog protectively pulls him away from Hazel. A brilliant golden light suddenly engulfs the entire room. The blast sends Hazel flying backward through the air. Landing safely, Hazel worries about the children and decides to act normally as she calls for them to come out. A tiny Luca and Luna emerge from the potion bottle, with Luca crying that he was scared. Hazel looks down at the miniature children in the palm of her hand with a pained expression. Placing them on a table, Hazel promises to make them a bed as they marvel at how big everything looks now. Luna shouts with glee about the giant cookies, while Hazel decides a few crumbs will be all right for them. Grab. Luca dives into a sugar bowl, yelling, "Yummy," as a flustered Hazel calls him out for cheating. Hazel smiles, announcing she's finished as she tucks the tiny children into 2 small, cozy bowls. Luna sits up in her new bed and asks if there is a flower petal blanket. Smiling warmly, Hazel gently sprinkles flower petals over them and wishes them sweet dreams. Both children are amazed by how soft and good their new petal blankets feel. Feeling like he's sleeping in a field of flowers, Luca murmurs that he's getting sleepy. Both Luna and Luca are now soundly asleep in their makeshift beds. Hazel gently watches over them, asking Luna if she is tired. Luna looks up at the ceiling, her voice filled with worry as she asks, what if the scary people return? Hazel is shocked by the question, asking if those people had been there before. Luna reveals a horrifying memory of a former nanny trying to suffocate her with a pillow when she was a baby. Staring at the sleeping child, Hazel finally understands why they specifically wanted a witch for a nanny. As Luna snuggles against her finger, Hazel softly reassures her. "It's okay, Luna. I'm here." The scene shifts to the intruders, now all tied up and knocked out in the drawing room. The knight who saved Hazel dusts off his hands, announcing that everything is taken care of. He looks around at the messy aftermath, comically questioning the giant sausage lying on the floor. He asks the subordinate where the witch and children are, who reports they are hiding in a nearby closet. The knight approaches the closet, wryly noting he originally planned to use this opportunity to chase the witch away. He steps into the closet, leaving his subordinates utterly shocked that their captain is going in there alone with a woman. Slam! The closet door shuts, leaving the 2 guards outside completely baffled. A wide shot of the mansion appears as a sound of utter shock is heard. The knight steps out of the closet as Hazel asks if all the bad guys were caught. He confirms it's thanks to her and asks where the children are. Hazel reveals the 2 tiny children sleeping peacefully in their bowl beds, leaving the knight speechless. He looks down at the sleeping children with a gentle, knowing smirk. Turning to leave, he promises Hazel that he will make sure the Grand Duke hears about her heroic deeds. He frames the incident as a fairy tale about Thumbelina and Thumbelino being saved from a frog by a brave witch. The scene shifts to a peaceful night sky filled with stars above a lush forest. Elsewhere, a man with white hair looks distraught, pleading for something not to be true. In a flashback, he stands in Luna's ruined room, staring at a shattered family portrait on the floor. A dark, scratched texture fills the screen, conveying a sense of dread and despair. The white-haired man's expression hardens with a grim understanding. A woman holding a lantern approaches him from behind, calling out, "Your Grace?" His eyes snap wide, with sudden, sharp realization. He turns to her in a rage, screaming, "Witch!" and demanding to know what happened. When he asks where the children are, she nervously hesitates as a tiny Luna and Luca peek out from behind her dress. A dark-haired attendant steps between them, calmly stating that he will explain the situation. Outside, the two men stand before a crater as the attendant concludes that an ignorant person was behind the attack. The attendant identifies the ridiculously strong intruders as northern barbarian mercenaries, shocking his Grace. He recounts their brutality on the battlefield and marvels that the inexperienced guards somehow fended them off. His Grace rubs his forehead in exhaustion, commending the attendant for achieving the impossible. The attendant modestly clarifies that they weren't the ones responsible for the victory. He reveals that the witch accomplished everything, leaving his Grace utterly stunned. The attendant explains she turned their swords into sausages and broccoli, which only deepens his Grace's confusion. The attendant asks why his Grace returned early, who replies that he left a temporary vice captain in charge of the expedition. Asked if he'd received any information about the invasion, his Grace confirms he had not. The scene returns to the present as he looks at Hazel, holding a locket and thinking of the word witch. Hazel looks up at him with a startled and worried expression. Alone in her room, Hazel sits with her things already packed by magic, deciding not to say goodbye to avoid making the children cry. She clutches a cloth to her face, a single tear escaping as she steels her resolve. His Grace peeks into the room, softly calling out for Miss Hazel. Startled, Hazel turns and asks why he has come to see her. He sincerely apologizes for his earlier harsh words and asks how he could possibly repay his sibling's savior. Noticing the broken window, he asks about it, causing Hazel to stammer nervously. Hazel panics, recalling the intruder being thrown through the window and fearing he has discovered everything. She frantically promises to cover the window repair fees herself. Confused, he tells her the Grand Duchy can pay, as she explains she had hoped to ask for a contract extension. With her head down, she fidgets and admits that now she has no excuse to stay. He flashes back to the night's report that the intruder called the children bastards, his expression darkening with anger. Overwhelmed by the memory and her imminent departure, Hazel begins to cry. He continues his apology, admitting he once suspected she had delusions of grandeur due to her paranoia and constant poison checking. He explains that he only understood after hearing about Luna's traumatic past. He stands with a grim and serious expression, folding his arms. He confesses his own paranoia stems from the unresolved assassination of his siblings. He reveals he was only 17 when it happened, but asserts that he's not a child anymore. He vows to endure until Luca is old enough to be the family head, symbolically entrusting Hazel with this heavy burden. Hazel is taken aback by his grim determination, telling him that's too much for him to bear. He looks down at her with surprise, asking why she's crying again. He awkwardly points out the strange situation of a young woman crying alone in a room with him. She tells him he's still very young too, and she feels sorry for him, which makes him question her perception. He muses that he must seem young to a witch who's lived for centuries, causing Hazel to inwardly panic at his assumption of her age. Flustered, Hazel shyly asks if she can come visit the children sometimes. He looks away and gives her a blunt and final no. A tear rolls down Hazel's cheek as she admits she expected that answer. She picks up her cape and gives him a final, formal curtsy. As she begins to leave, he calls out to Miss Hazel, formally stating that her temporary protection contract is now over. Hazel looks down with a sad, accepting smile, replying that she knows. Creak Hazel's hand rests on the door handle, ready to leave. Her mind fills with the memory of Luna and Luca's bright, happy laughter. Just as she turns to go, a hand firmly grabs her wrist. His Grace pulls her back, looking flustered but determined as she stares in shock. Her wide green eyes reflect her utter surprise at his sudden action. He blushes and looks away, clearly embarrassed by his own impulsive grab. He continues to hold her arm, preventing her from walking out the door. Hazel looks up at him, completely bewildered by this unexpected turn of events. He suddenly requests a pen and some paper, adding to Hazel's confusion. Annoyed at himself, he mutters, "Damn it," as he begins to write. He quickly finishes and thrusts the paper toward her. She takes the document, surprised to see it's a contract instead of a list of rules. Her eyes widen in disbelief as she reads the contract period. Until a nanny is no longer needed at the Grand Duchy. Watching her, he nervously clutches his collar, stammering, "Gee goodness! What is this?" With her eyes sparkling with joy, Hazel eagerly begins to sign the contract. Overjoyed, she signs her name and adds 2 vows with hearts, to give them love and to protect them. He looks on in disbelief, utterly bewildered by her drawing hearts on a formal contract. Overcome with emotion, Hazel beams with happiness, while he realizes just how much she must care for his siblings. A man with dark hair appears, expressing his complete inability to understand his grace. As the children garden outside, he questions his grace's decision to extend the nanny's contract, worried he'll lose it if he learns the conditions. In the garden, Luna and Luca excitedly point out that their plants have sprouted. The man offers to take over surveillance of the nanny, noting that children seem healthier and haven't caught their usual colds. He internally concedes that the nanny's advice about building immunity had merit, but is frustrated that his grace was so easily swayed. His grace dismisses him, stating that security will arrive soon and he should finish his business. A shocking, comical thought suddenly flashes through the man's mind. He imagines his grace chasing Hazel playfully, then quickly interrupts his own fantasy, begging him not to misunderstand. The man teases his grace about following the nanny around, threatening to report this to Her Holiness. Flustered, his grace sternly warns him not to even think of telling Her Holiness about this. Shaking his hands dismissively, his grace playfully asks why the man is still lingering. The man storms out in a huff, complaining that he left the Holy Night Order to serve such a cunning man. His grace stands alone in the now quiet sunroom, watching him leave. His expression turns serious as he recalls his order to interrogate the captured intruders in the dungeons. He concludes it's pointless, as the mana detected on them was identical to the Crown Prince's magician, providing definitive proof. Clenching his fist, he resolves that they must remain quiet for the time being. He knows public opinion can be easily manipulated, and one slick move by the Emperor could brand him a traitor. Sighing, he acknowledges that while this new evidence is helpful, the situation remains incredibly dangerous. The scene shifts to a grand, ominous-looking cathedral as a voice roars, "You stupid little thing!" A young man with blonde hair bows his head meekly. He looks up, his expression a mixture of fear and defiance. Emperor Albert Valerian furiously scolds the young man for his reckless actions, asking if he has lost his mind. A woman offers Albert tea, telling him that Gerald is repenting, while Princess Regina Valerian holds Gerald, questioning if he acted alone. Empress Lorraine glares at Gerald, demanding he stop looking at her as if she were in the wrong for scolding him. Gerald recoils, looking ill as he lets out a pained erg. Albert's face is a mask of pure, unadulterated rage. He monologues about using his late wife, a black magician, to curse his older brother so he could only have one heir, but laments that the curses unraveled after her death. Albert seethes with contempt, calling Gerald a useless child and unfavorably comparing him to someone named Elliot. In a fit of rage, Albert throws his teacup. The cup shatters against the floor, its contents splashing everywhere. Albert recounts his past schemes to restrict Elliot's power, including revoking Regina's succession rights, only for a third child to be born. Regina flashes a devious smirk as Gerald thinks in frustration that he knew this would happen. Albert fumes, recalling how he repeatedly sent Elliot to die on the battlefield, only for him to return victorious every time. Albert dismisses both Regina and Lorraine, intending to have a long, private conversation with Gerald. As they leave the throne room, Regina watches Lorraine walk ahead of her. Regina turns to Lorraine with a smug expression, pointedly asking for her agreement. Regina mockingly apologizes, reminding Lorraine of her past as a maid before she became empress, which infuriates her. Seething with anger, Lorraine mutters about her impertinent stepdaughter as she walks away. Lorraine calms herself, thinking that appeasing Albert and securing the succession is enough, though she considers Gerald's more aggressive suggestion. She harbors a dark wish to make Regina suffer the same fate as her mother. Albert continues his tirade, telling Gerald that while he's been useful in the shadows, this public failure is unacceptable. Albert warns that if this gets out, the imperial family will be doomed because of Gerald, who protests in shock. Gerald desperately argues his case, reminding his father that the witch was supposed to be on their side. He reveals his goal was to use the witch's power to kidnap the third son. The kidnapping was a means to locate a powerful holy relic hidden within the Grand Duchy. He explains this relic is rumored to hold enough holy power to conquer the world, Wham! Albert slams his fist down in fury. Albert roars that the witch's only loyalty is to money, not to their cause. In a flashback, Elliot scoffs at Gerald's foolishness, calling him an idiot. The scene shifts back to the present, where Elliot clumsily stumbles into the garden as Hazel is speaking. Flustered, Elliot apologizes to Hazel for his unexpected and clumsy entrance. Luna joyfully runs over, calling for Hazel's attention and pointing to something off-screen. As she catches Luna, Hazel realizes the plant she's seeing is the one she hastily planted to replace the magically altered broccoli. Eek! Hazel panics, certain that the clueless Elliot won't be able to come up with a believable excuse for the plant. In her panic, she loses her balance and falls right into Elliot. He looks down in surprise at her hands pressed against his chest. She quickly pushes him away with a startled shout. Hazel breathes heavily, completely flustered by the close call. Little Luca points to the plant and innocently asks if they used fertilizer. Elliot explains that they gave the broccoli something tasty, which made it grow so well. Hazel is relieved he covered for her, but then worries if the gardener saw the unusual supplies she retrieved. Hazel uses the opportunity to teach the children that fertilizer is absorbed through the roots. She beams, relieved that her simple explanation was accepted without question. Luca's eyes sparkle with wonder at the new knowledge. Suddenly, a voice shouts in alarm, "Luca! Don't eat it!" The scene cuts to Luca, his cheeks puffed out as he happily munches on the fertilizer. Later, Hazel laughs as she recalls how surprised she was that Luca nearly ate the fertilizer. A delicious-looking meal of tonkatsu is served. The four of them sit down for a meal, with Hazel praising everyone for their hard work in the garden. Elliot eyes his plate with suspicion, questioning why pork cutlet is served with rabbit food instead of potatoes. Flustered, Hazel explains it's a common combination in Korea, revealing a bit of her origin. As she drizzles a homemade dressing over the dish, she promises it will change his mind. While the children watch with anticipation, Elliot remains unconvinced. He sarcastically remarks that not even a starving beggar would eat raw cabbage like that. "Brother," Luna stares at him with an intensely serious and disapproving expression. She asks him if bad adults are the ones who refuse to eat the food they are given, shocking him. The children team up, using his own lessons against him by asking if he's a bad adult, leaving Elliot utterly speechless. Defeated by his own siblings, Elliot sighs and reluctantly agrees to eat it. A moment later, his plate is completely clean. He leans back, wiping his mouth as Hazel clears his empty plate, a smug smile on her face. Elliot realizes he was the one who fed carrots to Luna and Luca. Hazel smiles, thinking there are many surprising things she's learning about him. The scene shows the grand mansion and the cozy witch's hut in the distance. In a moment of frustration, Hazel thinks that he's still quite a picky eater. Hazel suggests they get a smaller dining table, but Elliot immediately refuses the idea. The man with dark hair recalls that the children ate well in the witch's hut. Hazel excitedly proposes they test out a meal in the hut to check its safety. Hazel happily asks if their meal together was nice, while Elliot sips his tea. She fantasizes about a cozy family meal as Luca calls out for her. Elliot coldly reminds her that a nanny is not a member of the family. Flustered, Hazel clarifies that she only meant the Duke's dining room is too big. She explains the formal atmosphere makes mealtimes an unpleasant etiquette class for the children. Pointing accusingly, Hazel declares that the unpleasant meals are his fault. She turns and walks away, feeling dejected after his silence. Hearing his decision, Hazel beams with excitement, praising his idea to use a smaller place for the week. Hazel offers him chocolate as a thank you and asks about his recent work, but he seems confused by her concern. He mentions a banquet at the palace, but admits he feels guilty leaving so soon after returning home. Hazel considers suggesting the children go with him, but internally frets over the difficult conversation. He admits her taking care of him feels awkward, prompting her to leave until he stops her. Turning back seriously, Hazel announces that she has something else to say. Elliot sits down and states that he will be adding one more rule. Startled, Hazel finds the rulebook and pen, wondering what he's up to now. She holds up the newly written rule, preparing to read what it says. Hazel stares at the paper in her hands, completely stunned by the new rule. Elliot looks away, hiding his face in embarrassment over what he's just done. He gently takes her chin, turning her face toward his. Holding her gaze, he looks at her intently. Flustered, Hazel questions his sudden action, as he reminds her she lunged at him earlier. She frantically insists that it was an accident caused by her being in a hurry. Elliot reads from his rulebook, forbidding her from gaping in surprise, causing her to protest his childish behavior. The rulebook glows in her hands as a notification declares she has decided to challenge him. Turning the tables, Hazel presents her own Big Brother rulebook to help him improve. As she passionately lists new rules, Elliot objects, claiming there's no room for him with a nanny so perfect. Hazel shouts that he must stop being sarcastic because Luna copies him, hindering her duties. Stunned, Elliot quietly questions if Luna really imitates him. He dramatically laments that Luna is growing up with him as a developmental obstacle. Enraged, Hazel screams at him to stop being sarcastic. A white cloth is comically thrown over his head in a gesture of surrender. With the cloth still on his head, Elliot claims he's following the no physical contact rule. A grand carriage makes its way through a snowy mountain pass. Inside, Elliot asks a tense Hazel to relax as their journey is nearly over. Hazel stiffly explains she's worried the carriage will shake and they'll bump into each other. Genuinely curious, Elliot asks what exactly she thinks of him. Luna secretly thinks he might be a nagging tyrant, which a tiny Elliot points out isn't a question. The children eagerly ask their brother if they have arrived at their destination yet. He tells them it's 6 more hours, causing Hazel to despair as it's the 4th day of travel. 2 carriages continue their journey through the snow, as narration reveals tomorrow is New Year's Day. The scene transitions to a lively banquet celebrating the Grand New Year festival. Luca excitedly declares he'll stay up all night, but Luna dryly reminds him he was asleep by 9 p.m. last year. Hazel beams with a bright, cheerful smile, encouraging the children's excitement. To pass the time, Hazel suggests a storytelling game where they each add 1 sentence, demonstrating with the tale of Snow White. Hazel begins a new story about Hansel and Gretel, starting with their poor parents abandoning them in the forest. In a modern twist, her story has Hansel and Gretel immediately reporting their parents for child abandonment. Elliot objects, insisting a fairy tale shouldn't begin with child abandonment as Luca starts to cry. Pondering his point, Hazel admits it wasn't very appropriate and was just an experiment in reinterpreting the tale. Luca and Luna sit together, looking up with wide, innocent eyes. Luna takes over the story, saying Hansel and Gretel left home because they were fed up with their parents. As the carriage travels through the snow, Elliot reacts to Luna's surprisingly rebellious story contribution. Luca chimes in, adding that the kids met a friendly witch who gave them a delicious carrot cake. Luna happily concludes this story, declaring that she, Luca, Elliot, and Hazel all lived happily ever after, stunning the 2 adults. An intense wave of awkwardness passes between Elliot and Hazel after Luna's impromptu family ending. Desperate to change the subject, Elliot suggests they play a word chain game instead, and Hazel quickly agrees. An attendant urgently informs Elliot that they can hear the footsteps of Yetis approaching the carriage. Elliot calmly asks for the number of Yetis and orders a knight named Victor to take a defensive position at the rear. He reassures a worried Hazel that Yetis aren't tough and instructs her to stay safely inside with the children. Crash! A surge of powerful energy erupts outside. Elliot turns with a sharp, alert expression as the attack begins. 2 large, ferocious Yetis with glowing eyes emerge from the snowy landscape. Unsheathing his sword, Elliot prepares to confront the beasts. A bright light emanates from his hand as he grips his sword, channeling his power. A protective magical barrier instantly materializes around the carriage. Inside, Hazel and the children watch in surprise as she realizes a barrier has trapped them. Ouch! Hazel recoils in pain after receiving a magical shock from touching the barrier. She worries about being unable to help if Elliot finds himself in danger. The children try to calm Hazel, reminding her of Elliot's confidence, while she marvels that such boldness runs in their genes. Still filled with doubt, Hazel anxiously wonders if Elliot can truly defeat 2 Yetis by himself. Elliot leaps forward, launching himself into the fray against the looming Yetis. In a blur of motion, he swings his sword with focused intensity. The scene flashes with the speed and impact of his powerful attack. His face splattered with blood, Elliot glares forward with cold determination after the battle. Hazel watches through the window, her expression a mixture of shock and awe. A brilliant flash of light signals a powerful event unfolding. A close-up reveals Elliot's sharp, unwavering gaze. Hazel's eye reflects the image of a victorious Elliot, her attention completely fixed on him. Back in the carriage, the children continue their game, with Luca loudly suggesting Yeti as the next word. Luca calls for his brother, telling him it's his turn to play the word chain game. Elliot stands alone in the blood-stained snow, his back to the carriage after the fight. Hazel stares with a look of stunned relief, processing what she just witnessed. Luca innocently asks Hazel if cool is a real word, causing her to gasp, realizing she must have said it out loud. Observing the cleanup, Hazel notes it's taking longer than the fight itself as Elliot finally gets a moment to rest. Luna and Luca excitedly rush out of the carriage, eager to tell their brother about their game. Horrified, Hazel shouts after the children, reminding them they can't run out without permission. Oof! She bumps into the invisible barrier again, painfully remembering she's stuck inside. Unable to leave, Hazel asks the driver to call the children back for her, and he readily agrees. As the children beckon her to come out and play, Hazel ponders who in the household has holy power, realizing the barrier is nullifying her magic. She recalls feeling a faint trace of holy power when Elliot first burst into her cabin. Memory of a book reveals that holy power and magic are opposing forces, though fundamentally similar. A knight reports that the Yetis attacked out of starvation, as Hazel reassures herself that she'll be fine without using major magic. Elliot wipes his face with a cloth, looking stressed and exhausted after the fight. Flustered inside the carriage, Hazel wonders why she keeps locking eyes with him. A sudden, violent jolt rattles the carriage, startling Hazel. Horrified, Hazel stares up as a massive Yeti looms over the carriage window. Elliot looks on in shock, as Luna and Luca scream in terror at the sight of the Yeti. Hazel panics, realizing another Yeti must have been hiding in the snow. Elliot shouts for Hazel to secure the horses as the children run towards him in the chaos. Hearing the children desperately call her name, Hazel's focus shifts entirely to their safety. Elliot realizes with dread that the scent of blood on him will draw the Yeti straight to the children. With the Duke and Knights disarmed, Hazel steps up, knowing she's the only one who can fight, and unleashes her magic. A powerful blast of magical energy erupts, striking the Yeti head-on. A brilliant golden light emanates from Hazel's outstretched hand as she channels her power. Her immense power surges forth in a blinding, chaotic wave. The force of her magical attack tears through the snowy landscape. Elliot and the children are thrown backward by the sheer force of the explosion. Inside the carriage, Hazel is violently thrown forward from the impact of her own spell. Thrown to the ground, a stunned Elliot wonders why she would deliberately cause such a massive collision. He then has a sudden, sharp realization. She did it to save the kids. A desperate cry of Hazel's name echoes through the air. The carriage is sent tumbling down a steep, snowy cliff as Hazel shouts reassurances to the children. The world becomes a dark, violent blur during the terrifying fall. Thrown about inside, Hazel desperately pleads for safety as the carriage crashes. A series of loud crashes signals the carriage's destructive landing. The wrecked carriage comes to a halt at the bottom of the snowy precipice. Lying amidst the wreckage, Hazel breathes a sigh of relief, thankful to be alive. Determined to check on the others, she reaches to push her way out of the broken carriage. Her hand is suddenly grasped from outside, and her eyes widen in shock. Elliot holds her hand tightly, his expression filled with concern. He expresses his relief that she is unharmed, explaining the Yeti was buried, and thanking her for saving them. Touched by his gratitude, Hazel looks up at him with a flustered expression. As Elliot helps her from the wreckage, she dismisses her actions as her duty, and asks about the children. Holding his hand, she is surprised by how large it feels compared to her own. As he pulls her to her feet, she cries out in pain and collapses, her ankle having given way. He asks if he pulled too hard, but she clarifies that she twisted her ankle during the crash. They discuss their options. Hazel has no healing magic, can't fly due to his holy power, and teleportation magic won't work. Elliot notes the holy barrier is gone, but laments their difficult situation. Realizing the horses have fled, he concludes there is only one option left. Growing impatient, a disheveled Hazel asks why he is hesitating. Elliot looks at her seriously and announces that he will have to carry her. He states carrying her is the only choice, and she cheekily notes his rulebook has no rules against it, prompting him to consider adding one about teasing. Without another word, Elliot gently lifts a surprised Hazel into his arms. Elliot trudges through the deep snow, carrying Hazel with a determined look. Hazel worriedly observes that his neck is red from the cold, and his shirt is still soaked from the battle. She instinctively reaches up and adjusts his collar to shield him from the cold, surprising him. He questions her fearlessness, listing her bold actions from fighting a bear to watching his bloody battle without flinching. She defensively refutes his claims, but becomes flustered when he brings up their intense moment, making her unable to stop thinking about it. After she asks where he ran from, he simply states that they are almost at their destination and continues walking. A man in a purple hood gently covers the children with a blanket, reassuring them that their family will be back soon. As Luna calls for Hazel, a woman waits anxiously, thinking it's taking much longer than expected. The woman gasps in sudden, wide-eyed shock. Again, she worries that it is taking longer than expected while Luna calls her name. She reacts with a horrified gasp, her eyes wide with alarm. Suddenly, Elliot is seen carrying an injured woman through the snow. Luna cheekily asks what they are doing, but Elliot sternly tells her the woman twisted her ankle, shocking Hazel. As Elliot calls for a doctor, Luna offers to blow on Hazel's ankle, who notes how much attention she gets now when hurt. Luna asks if Elliot is hurt, but he says no. Hazel starts to mention the Duke is injured, prompting Luna to tease Elliot about being jealous. Realizing Elliot won't admit his injuries to the kids, Hazel resolves to get a healing potion for him. While Elliot supports her, Hazel applies a healing potion to her own ankle as Luca watches on. Hazel confirms she can stand, and Luca proudly believes his magic breath must have healed her. Elliot informs Hazel that fixing the carriage will take time and asks her to ride with the children in the other one. As they walk together through the snow, Hazel quietly agrees. Elliot lets go of her hand, and Hazel is struck by the realization that he is an adult. Hazel recalls a time she brought a healing potion to Elliot for his broken ribs, and he asked her to keep his injury a secret from his siblings. Back in the present, Elliot walks ahead with a serious expression. Hazel gazes after him, her own expression resolute. The group and their 2 carriages are seen gathered in the snowy expanse. The scene shifts to the warm, lively interior of an inn, where patrons are cheerfully drinking. A man comments on the excitement of the Duke's household as Hazel and the children delight in the inn's bustling atmosphere. A waitress cheerfully brings their meal, and Hazel thanks her. The camera pans over a delicious-looking spread of an omelet, salad, and soup. Luca looks up from his plate and asks when his big brother is coming. Hazel's heart melts, realizing Luca is waiting to share the meal with Elliot, despite being hungry himself. Hazel relays Elliot's message to start eating, and Luna agrees they should eat while the food is warm. After burning her tongue, Hazel warns Luca to cool his food and chides him for playing with his beans as Luna cries about the farmer's hard work. Hazel reflects on how the children, particularly Luca, are learning to appreciate new dishes and flavors. Elliot finally enters, and Luna waves excitedly, calling him over to their table. Elliot asks if they are enjoying the food, and they all give an enthusiastic yes. Standing by the table, Elliot observes that it has started snowing outside. Victor arrives with 2 large mugs of ale, cheerfully offering one to Elliot and the other to Hazel. Hazel remembers a detail from the original Hansel and Gretel story, where the witch was a heavy drinker and feels relieved to be in a more wholesome world. As Victor tries to get her to drink, Luca innocently asks why a noble like him has no table manners, earning a gentle rebuke from Hazel. 2 overflowing mugs of ale are brought together in a toast. Elliot takes a long drink from his mug. Hazel watches him intently, her gaze fixed on him. She notices snow on Elliot's shoulder and struggles with the urge to brush it off, torn by the no-touch rule. A cute illustration shows Hazel blowing the snow off a surprised Elliot. Elliot dryly asks if she expects him to use magic to move every single snowflake. He closes his eyes with a sigh of exasperation. Deciding to act, Hazel reaches over and brushes the snow from his shoulder, simply stating, "There." Elliot asks if he should thank her, but she retorts that he should be thanking her for the favor, leaving him speechless at her logic. Luna watches the 2 bicker with a sly, knowing smile. As Hazel tries to downplay the moment for Luna's sake, she wonders where Sir Daniel is. Elliot explains that the Pope's procession was attacked by Yetis, so he sent a shaken Daniel, a former Holy Knight, to investigate. The mention of a Holy Knight triggers a sudden, shocking realization for Hazel. Hazel realizes the holy power she'd felt before must have been Sir Daniel's, not Elliot's. Elliot sternly warns Hazel not to mention their encounter to Daniel, leaving her confused. Elliot smirks, running a hand through his hair as Hazel looks at him in utter confusion. With a weary expression, Hazel thinks to herself as she processes the confusing situation. Hazel leads the children towards their room, asking Luna if this is where they will all be sleeping. Delighted, Hazel smiles, thinking they were given the biggest room as the children peek out from behind her. A stern-looking Elliot, with his shirt unbuttoned, appears in a doorway. Wham! Hazel throws open the door in a hurry, startling a wide-eyed Luna behind her. Hazel panics, realizing the room is meant for Elliot, who confirms it's his, while an inn attendant looks on. The attendant asks if there's a problem, and a worried Hazel explains the mix-up, asking if another room is available. The attendant regretfully informs them that there are no other rooms, leaving Hazel and Elliot in an awkward standoff. This is an example of an unhelpful response to the user. It does not provide enough information or context for the user to understand what is happening, and it does not offer any solution or next steps. Additionally, it contains jargon that may be unfamiliar to the user, making it even more difficult for them to comprehend. The response could be improved by providing a more detailed explanation of what went wrong, offering specific troubleshooting steps, or suggesting alternative actions the user could take. Misunderstanding the situation, Elliot is horrified at the thought of separating the children, causing Hazel to shout in confusion. Someone in the inn wonders why the attendant mistook Hazel for the children's mother when she doesn't resemble them. The flustered attendant explains she thought they were a family because they are all so handsome and lovely. Hazel cheerfully agrees that she, the children, and her employer are all good-looking, then realizes she knows the reason for the mix-up. She recalls receiving a large number of beautiful dresses, more suited for a young lady than a nanny. Hazel remembers how rumors spread that the Duke had improper intentions toward her because of how well she was treated. Back in the inn, Elliot tells his brother he'll sleep with the knights tonight as Hazel greets them. The knights react with sheer terror at the prospect of sharing a room with the Duke. Elliot orders Victor to lead the protesting knights away as Hazel bids them a simple goodnight. Turning towards their room, Hazel announces that it's time for them to go to bed as well. In bed, Luna defiantly declares she won't sleep until sunrise, while Luca is already fast asleep. With a sigh, Hazel easily tucks in the protesting Luna, who immediately starts snoring. Standing by the window, Hazel thinks about the approaching New Year and reminisces about past holidays with Lady Daisy. She fondly imagines her pets being pampered by the butlers at the Duke's mansion. Deciding to use the rare quiet to study, Hazel summons her glowing magic book. Settling at a desk, she opens the book to a chapter on sensory transfer spells. The book reveals complex magical diagrams, noting that the spell's difficulty varies. Hazel wears a strained smile, overwhelmed by the complexity of the magical text. She leans over her desk in deep concentration, murmuring that the spell can be unfolded. A sudden, loud screech jolts Hazel from her studies, making her leap from her chair in shock. Startled, she turns to the window, wondering what the noise was outside. Hazel cautiously opens the door to her balcony, her expression filled with surprise. Her eyes widen, reflecting a beautiful and mysterious light. She steps out onto the balcony and looks up at a magnificent, starry night sky. In the sky, she sees tiny, glowing angels playing trumpets and wonders if they are real. Gazing at the angelic display reflected in her eyes, Hazel breathes a delighted, "Wow!" On an adjacent balcony, Elliot watches her and notes that Your Holiness appears to be safe. Dressed in a robe, Elliot stands on his balcony and gravely announces that the Duke sent word. Elliot observes that she hasn't slept, and Hazel cheerfully replies that the knights have already collapsed. When Elliot asks if she summoned the angels, a flustered Hazel quickly pretends she can create illusions and laughs it off. Elliot turns away, stating that they will arrive at their destination tomorrow. Leaning on the railing, Hazel quietly acknowledges that it's already the new year. Elliot asks if she's worried about an ambush with the knights asleep, then confidently states they are safe with him and a witch present. As Elliot turns to go inside, Hazel calls out, asking where he is going. He reappears on the balcony, now holding a bottle of wine and a glass. Elliot pours a glass, stating that since it's after hours, she has no reason to refuse, and she agrees. He passes the glass of wine to her across the gap between their balconies. They toast to the new year, wishing each other good luck. As they stand on their balconies, brilliant fireworks erupt in the night sky above the inn. Hazel takes a thoughtful sip of the red wine, exclaiming that the drink is delicious. Hazel asks if it's made with wine. Elliot explains it's a traditional New Year's drink with orange, cinnamon, and apple. Hazel smiles, expressing her gladness that the first drink she's had in this world is so enjoyable. He reflects on Hazel's many sides, recalling her various expressions and their moments of closeness. Elliot admits to himself that his thoughts about this woman are becoming complicated in many ways. As they stand on their separate balconies under the night sky, he concludes that she is both fascinating and mysterious. A final glance at the wine glass marks the end of the night. The scene transitions to the inn, now bathed in the light of dawn. The Vatican holds its ceremonies not in its remote mountain home, but in a more accessible place for nobles. Amid a festive atmosphere, trumpets herald the gathering of noble houses at the palace temple. Elliot leads the children through a hall of knights as Luna asks about the place. Recalling a pretty lady from last year, he explains this is where they will meet the Pope. Daniel reports that children and nannies must enter the audience room first, perplexing Elliot, who instructs Daniel to follow him in later. Daniel looks up in surprise, realizing the man approaching is not Elliot. Elliot greets another noble, who teases him about his unchanged one-sided affection for Her Holiness, leaving Elliot looking baffled. When the arrival of Her Holiness is announced, Elliot and Daniel kneel. As Elliot thinks that while others see affection, he continues his thought with a grim expression. The Pope, a woman with long silver hair, actually hates him. As the Pope stands before him, his thought echoes, She hates him. Elliot maintains his serious composure while kneeling. Her Holiness gazes down at Elliot from her full height. The Pope greets Elliot, politely noting it has been a while. She turns and walks past them without another word, leaving them stunned. Her Holiness stops before the still kneeling Daniel. She lifts his chin and warmly greets him, hoping he's been well. As the other noble watches in shock, the Pope announces she has personal matters to discuss with both men inside. The story transitions to the next chapter. Internally, the Pope squeals with joy, gushing that someone called her a pretty lady. She clutches her blushing face, absolutely thrilled by the compliment. Now in a private room, Elliot complains that despite being childhood friends, he'll never get used to her sudden mood swings. Her Holiness simply smiles, caressing her own cheek fondly. She calls to Sir Daniel, who formally responds. The Pope pointedly asks Daniel if he is happy now that he chose Elliot over her. She reassures a flustered Daniel that he gets paid well, prompting Elliot to retort that she's acting as if they wouldn't. Daniel wistfully explains he had no choice but to become head of his household, otherwise he would have stayed to protect her for life. Her Holiness laughingly dismisses his declaration as him just venting about losing his one and only lover. Changing the subject, she mentions hearing a rumor that Elliot hired the wicked witch Hazel as a nanny. She continues, saying she wondered if the rumor was wrong or if Elliot's head was, prompting him to ask if she's insulting his intelligence. The Pope smirks, saying she won't argue with his assessment of himself. She then fondly remembers seeing Hazel with the children earlier, looking genuinely happy. She concludes that Hazel didn't seem wicked or have any suspicious energy about her. The Pope suggests the only suspicious thing was Hazel's flashy outfits, but Elliot clarifies it was a mix-up by the head maid. Clank. Suddenly serious, the Pope announces the children will be attending the palace banquet, shocking Elliot. Elliot questions her decision, arguing that the palace is the safest place, especially with her powerful healing abilities present. He confidently asks who would be foolish enough to attempt an assassination there. The Pope looks horrified, revealing her concern wasn't about an attack, but for the children's well-being, which makes Elliot understand. Elliot smiles reassuringly, telling her she can see for herself. In another room, Hazel enthusiastically preps the children, asking if they are ready and reminding them of their practice. Luca and Luna look up at her with earnest, slightly nervous expressions. Luna confidently states her plan. If food tastes bad, don't spit it out. Just eat something delicious right away. Luca confidently declares that if you're ever unsure what to do, you should just follow Big Brother. Hazel beams with pride, announcing that their theory is perfect after a month of intense preparation for their social debut. A frantic flashback shows a tearful Hazel crying out for Elliot amidst the chaos of training the children. Elliot stands poised and serious at the top of a grand staircase, dressed in his formal attire. Hazel looks up from the bottom of the stairs with a surprised and slightly awed expression. From a distance, Hazel gazes up at Elliot, who waits for her on the magnificent palace staircase. Elliot sternly reminds Hazel of the rules, to which she sheepishly agrees. Flustered under his gaze, Hazel stammers her agreement. The scene shifts to the breathtaking, cathedral-like exterior of the imperial palace. Inside the banquet hall, Hazel observes from her place as a nanny, while Elliot asks if the emperor will arrive soon. A crowned emperor addresses the room, welcoming the stars of the empire to the annual gathering. Standing before the grand dining table, the emperor thanks his subjects for their loyalty over the past year. His attention suddenly lands on the children, and he asks who they are, startling Hazel. The emperor fondly greets his beloved nieces and nephews, causing Hazel to wonder what he's planning. He announces he has prepared special dishes for them, stating that finishing every bite would be the best possible gift. The first course is served as a fork, descends toward a piece of broccoli. Luca and Luna begin eating the first appetizer, a simple plate of vegetables. Luna thinks it's easy, but a sudden crash resounds as the entire hall freezes in shock at the sight of them eating. Hazel smiles proudly, wondering if the children's picky eating habits were truly that infamous, as they now eat without complaint. A new plate is set down with a clatter, signaling the arrival of the next course. The second dish is revealed to be escargot, a plate of snails. Hazel, Luna, and Luca are horrified, with Hazel internally screaming at the sudden jump in difficulty. Hazel silently rages, questioning the logic of serving a snail dish to children. Elliot watches, knowingly, observing that a difficult dish has been served to the children as expected. He mentally tells Hazel to help, but she confidently messages back that her little acorns can eat anything now. Hazel gives a subtle signal to the nervous children, telling them to proceed with the plan. As Luca pretends to eat the snail, Hazel uses magic to swap it with a sausage. With a determined expression, Luca eats the sausage as Hazel confirms the switching magic was a success. Hazel happily eats the swapped snail dish, relishing its rich and expensive flavor. Luna and Luca enjoy their sausages instead, with Luca feeling relieved his backup plan worked. Elliot watches, suspecting Hazel anticipated this menu, just as a new dish is wheeled into the hall. Hazel anxiously hopes the next course is something the children can actually eat. Hazel's face is shadowed with disbelief and shock at the sight of the new dish. Her eyes widen in horror as she stares at the platter, wondering what it could possibly be. Both Luca and Luna stare at the new dish with wide-eyed terror. Elliot watches the scene unfold with a grim and pained expression. Hazel tries to get his attention, tapping on his fur collar and calling his title. When she offers him some, he flatly refuses. Elliot looks at the food on his own fork with disgust, wondering how she can possibly eat these chunks of intestines. The main dish is revealed to be grilled cow intestines, much to his horror. In stark contrast, Hazel is ecstatic, celebrating her luck and craving garlic and kimchi to go with the delicacy. A blonde-haired noble feels the immense social pressure not to spit out his food, imagined as menacing eyes staring at him. Visibly disgusted, he stammers, unable to refuse the dish in front of everyone. The other nobles at the table share his sentiment, looking nauseated by the meal. The emperor grips his cutlery, his expression turning menacing as he senses the guests' revulsion. A painful memory surfaces for the blonde noble of being scorned by a woman with red hair. Having fled the banquet hall, the noble retches against a wall as his attendant asks if he is all right. He wipes his mouth, realizing the cruel menu was undoubtedly the work of someone named Regina. As he recovers, he's startled by Hazel, who has appeared behind him. He explains he was getting fresh air, and then directly asks if she is the witch, Hazel. The blonde noble flashes a charming smile, introducing himself as Helios. Hazel wonders if Elliot sent him, and worries he might be inquiring about another wicked witch. Trying to excuse herself, Hazel is stopped by Helios, who pointedly asks why she didn't help. Helios demands to know why she didn't help that day, thinking she was supposed to have infiltrated the Grand Duke's house for them, but his attendant urges him to go back inside. As Helios and his attendant turn to leave, Hazel is left standing alone in stunned silence. The attendant bids her a pleasant evening, leaving Hazel to watch them walk away. She stands on the balcony, lost in thought and confusion about the encounter. A young voice calls out to someone, and the scene shifts to where Luca and Luna are standing. A boy with red hair approaches the children, asking if it's true their nanny is the wicked witch Hazel. Luna retorts that Hazel is the kind witch, shocking the boy, as his attendant warns him he's in trouble. Luna fiercely defends Hazel, asking the boy if he's declaring war on the Grand Duke's family. As the children argue, Hazel opens a door, wondering about the commotion, and Luca immediately calls out her name. Hazel comforts a teary-eyed Luca, who explains the boy called her a bad witch, upsetting his sister. With a determined grin, Hazel quickly assesses and understands the entire situation. She calmly informs the young master that she's no longer wicked, stunning both him and Luna. Hazel conjures a gingerbread cookie to prove her kindness, but Luna objects, telling her not to give it to him. Luna huffs that her cookies are too good for him, while Luca happily nibbles on his own treat. The flustered boy refuses the cheap cookie, boasting that his family employs the Empire's finest baker. Hazel's magic animates the gingerbread cookies, who playfully reenact a scene from Cinderella. The surrounding children watch in amazement, captivated by the magical cookie play. Luna proudly boasts about Hazel's cookie magic, as the red-haired boy secretly enjoys a crunchy, savory bite. He tries to maintain a tough facade, while clearly savoring the delicious cookie. Luna smugly asks if the cookie tastes good, already knowing the answer. He grudgingly admits it's good, and Luna responds with a satisfied HMPH. Relieved the situation was resolved peacefully, Hazel overhears another child asking their mother for a witch nanny. A noble woman watches, wondering just how much trouble the children caused to require a witch's magic for discipline. The Empress appears behind Hazel, her stern gaze instantly silencing the room. Luna respectfully addresses the Empress, explaining that Hazel has never used magic on them. The Empress coldly remarks that with Luna's lack of charm, it's no surprise nannies kept quitting. Horrified by the cruel comment, Hazel worriedly calls out Luna's name. Luna stands her ground, visibly hurt but defiant. As the Empress scoffs, Hazel subtly gestures with her finger, casting a small spell. Her magic silently slides the leg of a nearby table into the Empress's path. Kya, the Empress, trips spectacularly, her shriek echoing through the grand hall. Crying out in pain about her toe, the Empress fails to notice two nearby nobles snickering at her fall. Hazel cheekily sticks her tongue out, admonishing the Empress for being mean to a child. Luna looks up at Hazel, her eyes filled with awe and admiration. The story transitions, showing the wheels of their carriage returning home. Inside the carriage, a cheerful Hazel announces that good children deserve a reward. She praises the children's amazing performance, particularly their ability to eat vegetables without a single complaint. She continues to compliment them for staying calm and making no mistakes during their first crowded event. Luca and Luna sit together, looking slightly worn out but attentive. Luca requests chocolate and to sleep with Hazel for 10 nights, but she tells him he only gets one wish. Luna sits quietly beside her brother, a thoughtful and somber expression on her face. Elliot cautions Hazel, telling her it's dangerous to stand up in the moving carriage. Losing her balance, Hazel falls forward and embraces a surprised Luna. Cuddled in the hug, Luna quietly remarks that she's not as cute. Luna looks down, softly saying that she thinks Luca is cuter than her. Hazel reassures her, explaining that everyone's standard for what is cute is different as Luca looks on. Elliot remains silent, his expression thoughtful as he gazes out the carriage window. Hazel asks Luna if she thinks her brother is loved for being cute, but Elliot interjects, stating their brother is not cute at all. Taking Luna's hand, Hazel gently tells her that one doesn't have to be cute to be loved. Luna tearfully asks if the Empress will find her lovely if she grows up to be like her brother. Elliot looks pained as Luna admits the Empress doesn't love her, and Hazel promises to explain the complicated story when she's older. Hazel wisely tells Luna that just because someone doesn't love her, it doesn't mean she has to be unhappy. She continues, telling Luna that the other person's inability to love is their problem, not hers, as an elderly woman listens with concern. Hazel reveals this was advice from her grandmother, remembering a time when she cried alone after being comforted by her. Later that night, Hazel gently pats the blanket over the peacefully sleeping Luca and Luna. After quietly closing the children's bedroom door, Hazel's expression turns serious. Resolved, Hazel sits down and prepares to act on her decision. She closes her eyes and reaches out, channeling her magic into a glowing orb of light. Her magic forms a connection as a voice expresses concern for Your Highness the Crown Prince. A young man with blonde hair asks about the concern, realizing with a thought that his communication magic worked. He mentally notes the lucky timing of overhearing a conversation about himself, just as another voice questions if they've told the witch too much. Two shadowy figures discuss the witch, worrying she might now side with the Grand Duke. A jolt of magic hits Hazel as she's shocked by the implication that she was once aligned with the royal family. A man with glasses recalls telling the Crown Prince that he hoped the witch could sense a hidden relic, but Hazel realizes she knows nothing about it. Hazel, in her trance, looks utterly bored by the memory. The Crown Prince complains to an attendant that Hazel just stared blankly at him, concluding his handsomeness must have stunned her into talking nonsense. Listening in, Hazel is disgusted by his narcissism and silently wonders if he's insane. As Elliot's image flashes in her mind, Hazel gasps and struggles to refocus her concentration. The Crown Prince fumes, blaming Regina for his humiliation and worrying that Elliot's popularity will only grow. He seethes with rage, wishing he could get rid of Elliot like he did his parents, but recalling that his father told him to wait. His angry thoughts are interrupted when he spots something unexpected on his desk. He finds a bear-shaped cookie, a clear message from the eavesdropping witch. The magical connection is severed as Hazel abruptly stops her spell. She looks down, a nervous sweat on her face as she realizes she's just learned something huge. Startled by a sudden knock on her door, Hazel jumps and nervously asks, "Who is there?" Elliot peeks into the room, cautiously calling out for Miss Hazel. Hazel quickly puts on a smile, blushing as she insists that nothing is wrong. Elliot walks in to thank her, though she is still too flustered to properly respond. With a warm smile, Elliot praises her as a capable nanny who deserves a reward for her success. Her eyes widen in surprise as he asks if there is anything she would like. With newfound resolve, Hazel looks up at him and confirms that yes, there is. As he encourages her to speak, she steps closer, her hands clenched with nervous anticipation. Looking up at him, she asks if her reward is that he trusts her, to which he simply asks why. Flustered by his unexpected response, she is momentarily speechless. Elliot patiently urges her to go on as she struggles to find her words. She clasps her hands together, her expression a mix of anxiety and hope. She repeats her question about trust, and a slightly blushing Elliot again asks for her reasoning. Elliot looks away, asking her to promise that she will trust him. Looking him in the eyes, she earnestly agrees that she will trust him. A shadow falls over her face as her resolve hardens. Hazel is shocked when Elliot reveals he already knew about her past, exclaiming that he told her he didn't. Elliot explains he only pretended not to know her to protect her, though he admits a lack of trust was also a factor. He pulls his hand away, sternly reminding her that he had warned her not to investigate the matter. Hazel quickly denies investigating, explaining that the Crown Prince came to her and revealed everything himself. She relays that the Crown Prince is looking for a relic he believes is hidden in the estate, but Elliot confirms no such relic exists. Hazel realizes the royal family is attacking them over a baseless rumor, while Elliot thoughtfully considers this new information. Elliot explains the royal family's years-long obsession began when they investigated if his mother, a former saint, brought a relic to the family. He sternly instructs Hazel to keep this secret from everyone, including the children. Elliot reveals that very few people know this information, only himself and Daniel, the captain of the guard. He acknowledges his debt to her, but Hazel humbly brushes it off before changing the subject. As a stunned attendant looks on, Elliot asks Hazel how she evaded detection from the Crown Prince's own wizard. Hazel cheerfully explains she used a clever, advanced sensory transfer spell on a cookie that they'd never suspect. While a chibi Hazel looks pleased with herself, a chibi Elliot remains deeply suspicious of her methods. Elliot silently questions her casual decision to eavesdrop, while Hazel prepares to share another thought. She smiles warmly, admitting to Elliot that watching him struggle breaks her heart. A chibi Elliot holds up a sign telling her not to treat him like a child, leaving a flustered Hazel to deny she was. As Elliot leaves, wishing her sweet dreams, Hazel enthusiastically calls out a goodnight to him. Pausing outside her door, Elliot stands silently for a moment, lost in thought. Hazel reaffirms her loyalty to him, while outside, a blushing Elliot concedes that she is definitely not the Wicked Witch. Cough. The next morning, Hazel lies sick in bed with a cold compress, realizing she's caught a cold. A flashback shows an upset Luca shouting, "No," in front of Hazel and Elliot. The children had been difficult, with Luca refusing to eat or take medicine without Hazel and Elliot present. He had tearfully insisted that he didn't want anyone else taking care of him. Back in the present, Hazel realizes she caught the cold from Luca's stubborn refusal to rest. She despairs over the terrible timing, knowing her healing potions are useless against a common cold, and her stimulants are gone. Determined to find relief, she gets out of bed, remembering she has something in her cabin. She finds and retrieves a small bottle filled with a shimmering pain relief potion. Phew. After drinking the potion, she sighs in relief as she finally starts to feel better. In the quiet cabin, she notes that two maids named Lady and Daisy are watching the children for her. A sudden craving for shrimp porridge strikes, but she worries she doesn't have any fresh shrimp. With a flash of inspiration, she realizes the Grand Duke's kitchen must have some, and begins to daydream about porridge. Mischievously deciding to use 8 whole shrimp, she eagerly heads for the kitchen. Opening her cabin door, she stops short, surprised by what she finds. A sweet, handmade get-well-soon card from the children is taped to her furniture. Overcome with emotion, she clutches the adorable card and promises her little acorns that she will get better soon. She then notices a small bag tucked away beside a cabinet, wondering what else they left. She kneels and picks up the mysterious bag, curiously wondering what's inside. The bag contains lemon candies and several vials of an expensive healing stimulant. Touched by the anonymous, costly gift, she gratefully decides to enjoy it. Her spirits lifted, she happily rushes off to the main kitchen, singing about making her porridge. Arriving at the large pantry, she quietly calls out to see if anyone is there. Sniffle. Her face lights up with joy as she smells the fresh vegetables. Feeling a little guilty for sneaking ingredients, she decides to only take a few. She begins carefully dicing a carrot on a cutting board. The diced vegetables and fresh shrimp are added to a pot of bubbling porridge. The finished dish is a steaming, perfect bowl of shrimp porridge. Kaya, for the finishing touch, she proudly holds up a bottle of her special homemade sesame oil. As she's about to happily drizzle the oil over her meal, a familiar voice calls her name. Elliot stands in the doorway, sternly reminding her that a sick person should be resting, not working in the kitchen. He watches her with a cold, serious expression, waiting for an explanation. Clutching her bowl, a blushing Hazel timidly explains that she was hungry. He asks if she is planning to eat now, and she quietly confirms with a sniffle. Elliot crosses his arms, his gaze fixed on the porridge she just made. Looking down, he unexpectedly adjusts his sleeve and tells her, "Tell me how to make it." Sometime later, Hazel sits on her bed, completely flustered and blushing deeply. She thinks about how she could have just eaten in the kitchen, wondering why Elliot insisted on making the porridge for her himself. Elliot takes the bottle of sesame oil from a surprised Hazel, sternly telling her to stay in her room. He takes her wrist and insists he will bring the porridge to her bedroom when it's ready. A completely flustered Hazel questions his actions, calling him "Your Grace." Hazel tries to argue that she's almost done cooking, but one terrifying glare from Elliot silences her. Having returned to her room, Hazel sits in bed and answers a knock, excitedly expecting her porridge. She is stunned when Elliot himself enters with the tray, telling her not to get up. She inhales the pleasant, toasty aroma of the freshly made porridge. After taking a tentative bite, she blushes and confirms that she feels all right now. With a blissful expression, she exclaims that the porridge is absolutely delicious. As Elliot watches from her bedside, she thinks that for some reason, it tastes even better than usual. Her eyes widen with surprise, and a blush spreads across her face as she looks up at him. As Elliot sits on her bed, she explains the porridge is a special dish her grandmother used to make for her. He reminisces about his own mother making him soup whenever he was sick as a child. He recalls the fond memory of his mother eating the soup, noting it's been a long time. A gentle, warm smile spreads across Elliot's face as he remembers. Hazel curiously asks what kind of soup his mother used to make for him. He describes a simple, plain chicken soup with basic vegetables. Hazel earnestly promises to make the soup for him if he ever falls ill. Puffed! Hearing her sweet offer, Elliot breaks into a bright, genuine laugh. After finishing her meal, Hazel sets the empty bowl aside and thanks him sincerely. As she basks in feeling warm and full, Elliot gently touches her forehead to check her temperature. He places his hand against his own forehead for comparison and notes her fever hasn't gone down yet. Startled by the intimate gesture, Hazel turns beet red as he asks if she's taken her medicine yet. Elliot reveals the healing stimulant from before, explaining it was his gift and telling her to keep it a secret. He explains that people with a strong sense of duty often suffer in silence, so he gave it anonymously. Holding the potion, Hazel thinks about his considerate gesture. She thanks him for his thoughtfulness, causing him to look away with a slight blush. After Elliot leaves, Hazel sits alone in her room, the door slightly ajar. She remains in bed, quietly contemplating the evening's events. 1 month later, a stork wearing a satchel flies over the estate and taps on a window. Hazel cheerfully opens the window and greets the delivery stork, thanking it for its consistency. She carefully takes a small pouch from the stork's beak. While she's occupied, Luca sneaks up and innocently asks how babies are made, leaving Hazel speechless. A flustered Hazel defaults to the classic story about storks, which only confuses the nearby delivery bird. Luna matter-of-factly chimes in, explaining that babies are made when a man and woman sleep in the same bed. Mortified, Hazel insists that storks only deliver newspapers, an explanation Luca seems to accept. While visiting a sweet shop, Hazel thanks the stork, who dismisses her gratitude while she recalls the awkward conversation. Back at her desk with a stack of books, she opens the letter the stork delivered. The delivery contains a plaque and a newsletter inviting her to become an honorary member of the Wizard Association. The newsletter explains that witch nannies became trendy after the New Year festival, with her as the prime example. This trend solved the unemployment crisis among lower-ranked witches, leading to a shocking shortage of witch workers. She recalls receiving the plaque and a free honorary membership, which she eagerly accepted. She sits at her desk, realizing she only received the honor because Elliot acted as her guarantor, and wonders why. A bell rings, and thinking it's the children, she decides it's time to head back to them. Luca and Luna burst into the room, excitedly asking Hazel to go on a picnic with them. Delighted by the idea, Hazel eagerly agrees and hugs the children, who are wearing adorable squirrel outfits. The children announce that their brother is coming too, revealing a well-dressed Elliot holding a picnic basket and blanket. On their picnic, Hazel and the children happily enjoy the cheese and ham sandwiches she prepared. Hazel reflects that while they came for a picnic, they've mostly just been gathering herbs. Thinking it's fine as long as the children are happy, she's surprised when they suddenly jump up, finished with their meal. Luca and Luna excitedly tell her about a new flower they found and eagerly pull her to go see it. Elliot calmly calls out from a distance, warning the children not to wander off, or they'll get lost. Mid-sandwich, Hazel pauses to watch Elliot interact with the children. The children suddenly run back, playfully calling out Hazel's name. They eagerly ask Hazel to make them flower crowns, with Elliot and Hazel watching from their blanket. Delighted, Hazel shows them a flower ring she made and happily agrees to teach them how. Hazel feels an intense gaze and turns to find Elliot staring at her from across the blanket. Startled by his stare, she immediately wonders if she's done something wrong. Elliot looks at her with a thoughtful expression, seeming to consider his words carefully. He moves to sit beside her on the blanket, leaving her feeling nervous and confused. Elliot unexpectedly places his hand over hers, causing a shocked Hazel to try and pull away in a panic. She explains her surprise by saying he's usually so busy with mountains of paperwork. Elliot remains silent, leaving Hazel to wonder why he isn't responding. Feeling a little hurt, she asks if he came to watch her because he doesn't actually trust her. He explains he came to protect them in the dangerous forest, but she points out he should be following them, not sitting with her. Elliot simply rests his chin on his hand, looking at her with a knowing expression. His silent reaction leaves Hazel feeling even more confused. He finally speaks, bluntly asking Hazel if she dislikes him. Flustered, Hazel vehemently denies that she dislikes him. Leaning in, Elliot presses her with another question. Then, do you like me? Panicked, Hazel denies that too, which prompts him to slyly ask if that means she dislikes him after all. Peeved? An amused smirk spreads across Elliot's face as he watches her struggle for an answer. Hazel finally manages to say that she thinks he's a good person, blushing deeply as he looks on, satisfied. He leans closer, quietly asking if she plans on taking back her compliment. Suddenly, the sky opens up and a heavy rain begins to fall, forcing them to seek shelter. Having found refuge in a dilapidated old chapel, Elliot observes the storm, noting the dark clouds mean it won't stop soon. He watches the heavy rainfall with a concerned look on his face. Sitting by the fire, Hazel shivers uncontrollably from the cold and dampness. Noticing her shiver, Elliot turns toward her. He drapes his coat over her shoulders, and she stammers a quiet thank you for his kindness. To pass the time, Luna declares the chapel a temple, and volunteers to be the Pope. A curious Luca asks what a Pope does. A chibi Elliot cheekily replies that they bother their cousins, referencing Pope Giselle, which an indignant chibi Luna denies. Hazel thoughtfully suggests a service or blessing ceremony. The children dismiss her ideas as boring. Luna asks if popes officiate weddings, noting they only handle royal ceremonies. With a determined shout, Luna decides to proceed with her game. Acting as the Pope, Luna stands before an altar and announces the groom is Grand Duke Elliot Blaine. She then declares the bride will be Miss Hazel, leaving both Elliot and Hazel stunned. When Elliot suggests marrying Daisy and Lady instead, an impatient Luna yells at him to hurry up. Hazel and Elliot stand awkwardly beside each other, their faces frozen in shock. Luna pronounces them husband and wife, then orders them to share a kiss, shocking them both. As they both refuse, the children start chanting, "Kiss!" and an exasperated Elliot covers his face, telling Luna she's taking it too far. Elliot tries to compose himself, still red-faced and bewildered by the situation. As the kiss chants continue, he looks at Hazel, thinking it's strange to be so flustered over a simple children's game. A flustered Hazel and a blushing Elliot stand close together in an intimate moment. The romantic tension hangs in the air as they continue to blush, surrounded by illustrative roses. Thump thump. Hazel suddenly embraces a surprised Elliot. Thump thump. Holding him tightly with her eyes squeezed shut, she quietly whispers, "Rain." Elliot looks down at her in confusion, questioning her strange word. Luna and Luca tilt their heads, equally perplexed by the mention of rain. Suddenly, the sun breaks through the trees as a voice announces the rain has stopped. As they walk through the sunny forest, Luca asks how Hazel controlled the weather, and she shyly admits it's her first success. Elliot thoughtfully observes that she must have really wanted it to work. Luca suddenly asks Hazel if she has ever wanted a little sibling. A surprised Hazel turns around, wondering where such a question came from. The children cheer that they'd love for Hazel to be their sister. Stunned, Hazel listens as the children start chanting for her to marry him. She thinks to herself that the Grand Duke would never marry a witch. Furthermore, she believes he definitely wouldn't marry a nanny. She recalls an image of a loveless noble wedding, thinking it's about family contracts. Luna asks Elliot if he'll get married like that, and he confirms his family needs help from others. A panicked Hazel waves her hands, insisting she doesn't think about marriage, especially not with the Grand Duke. Luna and Luca stare blankly at her vehement denial. Luna then declares that if she were Hazel, she wouldn't marry her brother either, which visibly annoys Elliot. Hazel glances back at him, caught in the awkward moment. An offended Elliot turns and demands to know what Luna's comment was supposed to mean. Hazel continues walking with her basket, trying to ignore the conversation. Luna asks Elliot if he's really not interested in Hazel. She tells him not to make Hazel uncomfortable and reveals she thinks Hazel likes him, stunning Elliot. Luna explains that when the Yetis appeared, Hazel said he looked cool. She recalls how Hazel was staring out the window in a daze after he returned from the battle. As a flashback shows Hazel's admiring expression, Elliot asks in disbelief if that's what she really said. He thinks to himself that covered in Yeti blood, he couldn't have looked cool at all. He turns away, quietly wondering if she truly thought that was cool. Luna points out that his face is turning red, causing a flustered Elliot to cover his mouth. He sternly tells Luna not to tell this story to anyone, but she asks which part he means. He clarifies both and threatens to withhold her carrot cake for 6 months if she tells, which she protests is too cruel. In his office, an aide informs Elliot that the Crown Prince sent a letter confirming he'll attend the ball. The aide notes that the star of their plan is personally coming to them. Looking at the letter, Elliot declares that half of their operation is now complete. He stares at the envelope with a serious expression. A close-up reveals the green wax seal of the royal family. Elliot's thoughts drift to an image of Hazel smiling brightly in the forest. The aide tries to get his attention, musing that witches can be witch people and asking if he's listening. In a grand hall, women gossip that Elliot is way overdue for marriage. The aide advises Elliot to seriously consider proposing to a lady during the event. He reminds Elliot the ball is also a chance to squash unfounded rumors, which started when he was seen whispering to Hazel. The aide insists that Elliot must publicly deny the rumors, as they will severely damage his marriage prospects. The aide looks on with a determined, serious expression. He instructs Elliot to keep as far away from the witch as possible during the party. The scene briefly shows Hazel in an elegant dress, standing with a maid on the estate grounds. A shocked Hazel gasps, her hand flying to her mouth. Elliot agrees with his aide's instruction, stating he was already planning to. As a figure approaches in the distance, the aide remarks, "Speak of the devil, here they come." A confident man in a regal uniform, the crown prince, remarks that the key figures have arrived. Elliot thoughtfully wonders if he really looks that old, which earns a shocked pardon from his aide. The aide reminds Elliot how Hazel once asked if he was the children's father, which clearly still stings him. Observing Elliot's stunned silence, the aide realizes he's completely dumbfounded by the memory. He explains that Elliot used to be sleep-deprived and constantly frowning, prompting a shocked Elliot to ask if he looked that bad. The aide reassures him that he looks much better now, so his marriage prospects with the lady should be excellent. Grudgingly admitting Elliot is annoyingly handsome, the aide urges him to stay focused for the party. Elliot and his aide turn to greet the crown prince, who has just made his grand entrance. As they shake hands, the prince explains he rushed over, quoting a proverb about the importance of family. Beside the prince, a graceful blonde woman offers a gentle, pleasant smile. The woman continues to smile serenely, surrounded by an aura of elegance and roses. Elliot gently takes the woman's offered hand. He brings her hand to his lips for a formal kiss as Hazel watches silently from afar. Hazel stands speechless, taking in the scene before her. Deciding it's time for the children's dinner, Hazel turns to leave, but is stopped by a voice calling her a witch. She turns back with a questioning look, surprised to be addressed so rudely. A trio of confrontational noblewomen, led by one with pink pigtails, stands before her with disdainful expressions. The lead woman addresses Hazel by name, her tone sharp and accusatory. Hazel confirms her name and asks what's wrong, only to be called a wicked witch. The woman accuses Hazel of scheming to get close to Elliot, and declares a witch could never become Grand Duchess, leaving Hazel stunned. She proclaims that the esteemed position belongs to Lady Bella of the Monet ducal family. Telling Hazel to aim for something more realistic, the woman is met with a flustered denial, as Hazel insists she never had such ambitions. The woman recalls the New Year's banquet, accusing Hazel of acting brazenly by whispering to Elliot and then playing innocent. Hazel clarifies she was just trying to sneak a taste of the tripe he was eating, an explanation that disgusts the noblewoman. The woman's criticism then shifts to Hazel's outfit, finding another reason to be offended. She scoffs that a mere nanny shouldn't wear a dress fit for a wealthy lady, and Hazel notes the woman's furious expression. Hazel calmly replies, "The dress was a gift from Elliot," cleverly suggesting that if the woman has an issue, she should ask him if he has feelings for her. Secretly, Hazel smirks, recalling that the dress was actually just an accidental order placed by a maid. Hazel advises the fuming woman to take her complaints directly to Elliot instead of picking on someone easy. Walking away confidently, Hazel thinks that the woman can't even win an argument as she leaves the trio fuming in her wake. Her victory is cut short when a voice shouts her name, causing her to gasp in surprise. At the top of the stairs, Luna and Luca peek out, asking where she's been. Luna eagerly asks when they're going to see the fireworks. Realizing the music has started and it's late, Hazel panics, grabbing Luna's hand. She apologizes profusely to the children, admitting she lost track of time while getting ready. Kneeling down, Hazel smiles warmly at Luna and Luca, now ready to go. As Hazel leads the children through the party, an onlooker notes that they can't officially attend. Hazel scans the room, thinking that while they have permission for the fireworks, she must find Elliot to hand the children over to him first. Spotting a group of guests, she worries that time is running out before the fireworks begin. Hazel approaches a man with a ponytail, addressing him as Sir Victor. She brightly asks Sir Victor if he has seen Elliot. Sir Victor hesitates for a moment, his expression slightly troubled. He points across the ballroom, telling her Elliot is over there. Hazel's cheerful expression falters as her eyes widen in shock at what she sees. In the center of the floor, Elliot dances with a blonde woman as a guest remarks on what a perfect pair they make. Other ladies gossip that Lady Bella is a perfect choice for Grand Duchess, calling the dancing couple picturesque. Hazel tries desperately to keep her face neutral as she feels her expression stiffening with dismay. Turning to Sir Victor, she asks him to watch the children for a moment while she goes to set off the fireworks. Sir Victor cheerfully suggests she has plenty of time and invites Lady Hazel for a dance. A flustered Hazel protests that she can't dance, but he insists that today is the day she'll learn. Sir Victor cheerfully volunteers a stunned Sir Daniel to watch the children. Hazel politely declines the dance, noting it's improper for a servant, but Sir Victor points out they are all servants of the household. A vice-captain sternly warns Sir Daniel not to get too close to Elliot, and he quickly agrees. Ignoring her protests, Sir Victor excitedly pulls a wide-eyed Hazel onto the dance floor. As they dance, he compliments her, remarking that she's doing surprisingly well for a beginner. Hazel laughs, crediting him as a good teacher and admitting she's just barely managing. Just as she says this, she steps on his foot and apologizes, but he brushes it off with a smile. He reassures her by sharing that he was once so clumsy that people avoided dancing with him. He takes her hand more firmly, guiding her with a reassuring grip. She wonders why someone so skilled would teach her, and he playfully insists he's decent now. A sharp voice cuts in as Elliot appears, pointing out that the straps on her dress are undone. Startled, Hazel stammers his title, while Sir Victor smiles at the Grand Duke's arrival. Sir Victor declares that with a more excellent teacher present, he will humbly step aside. A panicked Hazel calls out to Sir Victor as he leaves her alone with the stern-looking Elliot. Laughing nervously, Hazel tries to flee as well, but Elliot calls for her to wait. Elliot stands with a grim expression, a shimmering aura around him. Panicked, Hazel calls out to the retreating Sir Victor, left alone with a stern Elliot. Elliot remains standing with a serious expression, the air around him sparkling. As she turns to leave, Hazel worries that staying any longer will make her as bitter as the other ladies. Deciding to prepare the fireworks, she makes a quick turn to leave the balcony. In her haste, Hazel loses her footing and begins to fall backward with a gasp. Crying out that she's falling, she feels a hand suddenly catch her shoulder. Saved from her fall, she looks back in surprise to see who caught her. Elliot holds her steady, looking down at her and bluntly saying, "Huh, which?" He steadies her as they stare at each other, a moment of surprise passing between them. To her astonishment, Elliot kneels before her, assuring her that this time, her straps won't come undone. He asks if she is all right, and a flustered Hazel brightly stammers that she's fine. Waving her hands, she thanks him and urges him to go back inside the party. Elliot flatly refuses, leaving a confused Hazel to ask what he means. He stands before her on the quiet balcony, blocking her path. Hazel hesitantly explains that it feels inappropriate for her to be dancing out here in her current outfit. Elliot coolly asks what's wrong with the dress that he personally bought for her. Stunned by his words, she hesitantly reaches for his outstretched hand. Her mind is flooded with painful memories of the aide and noblewomen calling her a wicked witch who should know her place. Overwhelmed, she pulls her hand back and bows her head, silently rejecting his offer. From a distance, a group of noblewomen are seen gossiping and laughing. The blonde Lady Bella laughs with another woman, as the words, "not a witch," emphasize her suitability. Hazel clutches her dress in distress, feeling the immense weight of her social standing. Later, Luna and Luca watch the fireworks in awe, pointing them out to Elliot. While the children marvel at the bright colors, Elliot watches the display with a cold, distant expression. Elsewhere, the Crown Prince informs Elliot that the Duke of Monet approached him directly, implying a marriage proposal. The aide confronts Elliot, demanding to know why he went near Hazel after being explicitly warned to stay away. In a flashback, Elliot watches Hazel dance with Sir Victor and admits he doesn't know what came over him. He recalls the image of her bright, happy smile as she danced. He thinks that if she had just cast a spell on him, his confusing feelings would be easier to accept. The aide reminds him of his political duties, stressing that his household needs alliances and has no support from the Emperor. He explains that an alliance with a powerful family like the Monet is their only path forward. Memory of Luna asking if he'll have an arranged marriage plays, showing a somber Elliot from the past. Elliot's expression hardens as he accepts the weight of his duty. Though surrounded by the cheerful children, Elliot's face remains grim and unreadable. A chibi illustration depicts an angry Elliot as a terrible guardian whose siblings ran away. A caricature shows a stubborn Elliot, the pitiful young head of the family, frustrating Hazel. Elliot recalls how Hazel used to insult him, believing she must have hated him back then. A flashback reveals a cheerful Hazel playfully dangling the locket in front of a flustered Elliot. The scene transitions to a soft, romanticized memory of him and Hazel in a grand hall. He remembers a specific moment he carried her, the locket visible on his uniform. A memory of Luna surfaces, recounting that Hazel thought he looked cool when fighting Yetis. He vividly recalls the adoring, blushing look she gave him at that very moment. The memory continues on a balcony, where he gently adjusted the ribbon on her dress. He remembers her initial surprise, which quickly melted into a shy, blushing expression. Her expression turns to shock as his own gaze suddenly becomes sharp and intense. As a bunny-shaped firework explodes, Elliot comforts Luna, dismissing her words as a simple misunderstanding. "Pop!" A delighted Lucas shouts Luna's nickname, Lulu, completely captivated by the fireworks. Luna points toward the sky, excitedly exclaiming that the firework looks just like a bunny. Elliot stands beside the children, his expression unreadable, as he watches the display. From a distance, Hazel watches them, a trail of golden magic swirling from her fingertip. She seems startled by her own uncontrollable magic, covering her face in a flustered panic. Lowering her hand, her worried gaze remains fixed on the balcony where the family stands. A colorful firework bursts as Elliot blushes, muttering a frustrated, "Ah, damn it." He pulls the children into a warm embrace, sharing the beautiful moment under the starry sky. Later that night, the grand estate stands quiet and peaceful under the moon. Inside, the festive atmosphere is interrupted as guests are escorted from the ballroom. A noblewoman protests being thrown out, but an official insists they need her cooperation for a search. Murmurs spread as the reason is revealed. A sacred relic has disappeared from the Grand Duke's chapel vault. A frantic guard reports they've searched everywhere, prompting Elliot to order a check of all departed guests. A carriage speeds away from the estate, and its sole passenger is identified as the Crown Prince. Elliot angrily intercepts the carriage, demanding the Crown Prince hand over the stolen item immediately. The Crown Prince feigns outrage, questioning Elliot's disrespectful behavior toward a royal. Elliot specifies he wants the relic, making the prince recall his own father's long-held desire for it. A sinister grin spreads across the Crown Prince's face, confirming he knows exactly what Elliot is after. In a flashback, a smiling Elliot discusses a letter with his trusted aide. The aide recounts how the prince was openly delighted that the relic truly existed, not even trying to hide his desire for it. He remembers the prince's pathetic and stubborn denials, claiming he didn't even know where the relic was. Remembering this, Elliot smiles with confident satisfaction, certain he has the upper hand. The scene focuses on the ornate, magically shimmering relic at the center of the conflict. The next morning, Luna and Lucas excitedly chatter about how pretty the fireworks were, especially the bunny-shaped ones. Hazel asks if she should arrange the same for Luna's birthday, and Lucas eagerly requests it for his own. She happily agrees, but tells them it's time for bed, playfully warning them about ghosts if they stay up. With tears welling in his eyes, Lucas sweetly asks if he and Luna can sleep with her tonight. Luna complains that her brother is too rigid to have a lover, while Hazel muses he might get one soon. Luna pointedly asks if Hazel knows Lady Bella from the Monet family, but Hazel replies that she doesn't. Luna continues to watch Hazel with a serious and calculating expression. She finally states that her brother and Hazel look better together and that she thinks he likes Hazel. Completely stunned, Hazel stammers in disbelief at Luna's bold matchmaking attempt. Luna argues that her brother only plays pranks on Hazel, but Hazel nervously dismisses it as him just being comfortable with her. Hazel reminds Luna that Elliot has shown kindness to others too, like when he tied Luna's shoelaces. She flails her hands frantically, insisting that it's all the same feeling and definitely means nothing special. Sitting up with determination, Luna boldly declares, "I want Hazel to marry my brother." She explains that this is the only way for them all to become a real family. Hazel cheerfully counters that she already considers them family, prompting a flustered Luna to quickly agree. Luna clarifies she didn't mean anything by her question, but Hazel just laughs it off warmly. The next morning, Luna and Luca sleep peacefully in bed together. A quiet moment focuses on Luna's hands, resting peacefully as she sleeps. Peeking from under the covers, Luna wakes up and asks Hazel if she dislikes her brother. Hazel looks startled and saddened by the unexpected question. Sitting by their bed, Hazel reassures Luna that if she doesn't like Elliot, she won't mention it again. Walking through the hall with a lantern, Hazel reflects on her growing desires now that her life is comfortable. Elsewhere, Elliot stands before a door, recalling that a year ago, his only wish was for a single friend. As Elliot turns, a voice addresses him as "Your Grace," and he greets Lady Hazel. Holding her lantern, a surprised Hazel asks what brings him to her door. Elliot hesitates, touching the back of his neck awkwardly without answering. The two stand facing each other in a moment of quiet, awkward tension. Elliot apologizes for his rude behavior earlier, leaving Hazel confused as she asks what he means. He looks away with a slight blush, clearly embarrassed by his past actions. Hazel quickly insists he doesn't need to apologize, saying she should be thanking him for saving her. She internally notes his embarrassment, concluding that he didn't truly mean his harsh words. Relieved, Elliot asks if she was hurt, and Hazel confirms she's perfectly fine. Elliot admits she looks startled to see him, and Hazel internally retorts that anyone would be finding someone lurking at their door. Elliot seems to understand her reaction, murmuring that must have been why she was so surprised. Hazel playfully clings to his arm, gushing that his good looks always catch her off guard, which flusters him. Bidding him goodnight, Hazel prepares to enter her room and tells him to rest well. Hazel's thoughts drift back to her past life in Korea, recalling an obsessive fan of an idol. In a flashback, high school students rave about an idol's unreal good looks and recent comeback. The memory continues as a fan watches the idol on her phone, thinking she just wants to admire him from afar. The fan concludes that the idol's face is a blessing to the world, content to just admire him forever. Hazel has an epiphany, deciding her feelings for Elliot are simply a form of fangirling, like cheering for an idol. She reminds herself of her station, thinking there's no way a Grand Duke would ever end up with a witch. Sitting on her bed, she resolves that if she has fallen for him, she must force herself to fall out of love. Hazel looks up with a determined expression, solidifying her decision. The detailed rose embroidery on her nightgown is shown as she sits quietly. A new day begins as the scene shifts to the grand exterior of the ducal mansion. In another location, a nobleman with a prominent mustache looks furious. A red-haired woman criticizes a young blonde man for failing to learn about a hidden relic, leaving him speechless. The nobleman angrily grabs the young man's wrist, identifying him as Gerald and calling him a mistake. Gerald protests to his father, insisting that confirming the relic's existence is important, but his father dismisses him. The father belittles Gerald for his failures. As a lady reports that Elliot has been refusing their invitations for days, the father explodes with rage, refusing to believe Elliot is simply holed up. He recalls that Elliot's reputation has been on the rise since the festival, where he sought new alliances and a wife. Gerald reports that Elliot believes their family is finished, but his father angrily denies it. The red-haired woman deviously suggests they target the Grand Duchy itself, instead of just the Grand Duke. A sinister idea dawns on the father, who orders all the palace magicians to be summoned immediately. The decorative title card marks a transition in the story. On patrol in a forest, Elliot and another knight discuss the suspicious appearance of a swamp monster. Elliot worries as monsters, including new species, reappear, fearing what will happen if his enemies discover what the relic truly is. His inner monologue reveals the secret. The relic is actually the holy power residing within him. Clenching his fist, Elliot grimly thinks that if his secret is revealed, his enemies will try to use him like a tool. A dark-haired knight advises Elliot to avoid using his holy power, and Elliot tersely agrees it's obvious. As the two knights ride away, Hazel is shown secretly watching them from behind a tree. Hazel looks up with a start while riding through a sun-dappled forest. A knight expresses his gratitude for her help, but she cheerfully insists she's happy to test her magic. Meanwhile, Luna studies diligently, while Luca panics over his lessons. The knight worries about her staying at the campsite, thinking it must be difficult for a lady. Hazel explains she won't be camping, but will instead commute to and from the manor daily. When the knight questions the day-long journey, she begins to mention a cabin in the Black Forest, catching Elliot's attention. Elliot sternly cuts her off, reminding her that the cabin is a secret meant only for them. Hazel confidently brushes off the concern, declaring that as a witch, such a trip is nothing to her. As the knight helps Hazel on her horse, Elliot watches silently until another knight calls his title. The dark-haired knight asks if Elliot is listening, and he flatly answers no. Elliot addresses the knight as Daniel, who responds attentively. Elliot poses a strange question to a bewildered Daniel, asking how one deals with being realistically handsome. Thinking of Hazel's words, Elliot complains that someone called him unrealistically handsome, much to Daniel's confusion. Daniel leans in close, annoyed, demanding to know who said such a thing, and Elliot reveals it was a young lady. As they ride on, Daniel mutters that Elliot is asking the wrong person, as he himself is the one who is realistically handsome. Daniel despairs, wishing Elliot would ask someone who has experienced both kinds of handsomeness. Elliot asks if he knows anyone like that, causing Daniel to become visibly frustrated. The scene transitions, showing a sparkling stream flowing through the woods. Elliot and Daniel continue their patrol through the forest. Deciding they've gone far enough, Elliot orders everyone to set up camp for the night. At the campsite, Hazel nervously looks around as knights go about their duties. One of the knights realizes he forgot to bring something from the storeroom. Hazel overhears and kindly offers to retrieve it for him if it's not too heavy. Two knights happily gossip, comparing Hazel's helpful nature to a squirrel and praising her for handling dinner. Elliot appears behind them, his face darkened with annoyance as he states that Hazel is not their personal cook. Startled by his sudden and stern interruption, the two knights flinch in surprise. One of the knights stammers an apology while Elliot stands with his arms crossed, looking displeased. Hazel arrives at that moment, cheerfully presenting a massive stew pot. The knight thanks her profusely for the stew, then comically realizes she forgot the very pot he was meant to retrieve. Elliot watches them, dryly asking if they finally have everything they need. He remains silent, his expression unreadable as he observes the scene. Hazel laughs brightly while chatting with one of the knights. A panicked shout for your grace cuts through the air as a knight rushes toward them, startling Hazel. Gasping for breath, the knight urgently tells Elliot he needs to see something immediately. Elliot, flanked by two others, walks grimly into the woods to investigate. Wiping his brow, Elliot wonders aloud what could possibly be causing such a fuss. His expression turns to shock as he discovers something unexpected, questioning what he's seeing. The story pauses on a promotional illustration. Elliot and his knights stand at the edge of a cliff, surveying the area below. Upon investigation, Elliot notes the discovery of a large cave. The knight who summoned him explains there is more to see and directs their attention to the cave floor. Elliot steps into the dark cave, remarking that it seems ordinary despite the knight's suspicion. As the knight leads him deeper, he tells Elliot to stop watching him and look at the ground. At the back of the cave, both Elliot and Daniel are stunned into silence by what they find. The knight reveals a massive magic circle, apologizing for his secrecy but explaining he didn't want the information to leak. Elliot accepts the apology, stating that his trust was proven when he followed the knight this far. Another knight fanboys over Elliot, while noting that the magic circle appears to have been drawn very recently. Elliot turns to Daniel, asking for his thoughts on the situation. Daniel connects the dots. Monsters appearing after rumors of Elliot's holy power spread, now followed by a massive, obvious magic circle. Elliot concludes that their enemies are trying to bait him into retrieving the relic himself. Daniel scoffs at the enemy's crude tactics, while Elliot finds their obsession with the relic foolish. Hazel suddenly arrives, anxiously asking if the magic circle is dangerous. Sitting down to inspect the runes, Hazel considers their origin as Daniel asks if she can trace where they came from. A simple diagram illustrates how the paired magic circles function as a two-way teleporter. Elliot tells Hazel the real problem is finding the other circle's location. He explains that from this circle alone, there's no way to know where the other is or where it will send them. Daniel notes it's the work of a high-level mage that will take time to analyze and suggests they keep going for now. Wearing bunny ears, Hazel announces she'll copy the circle onto parchment and decipher it before the day ends. Her pen carefully traces the intricate design of the magic circle, including a coiled snake at its center. Elliot watches silently from behind as Hazel diligently works on copying the circle's design. He thinks that if they can figure out the activation conditions, they can prepare for the search, feeling a little embarrassed. As she sketches, Hazel muses that the spell should work if copied correctly, but its destination could be very dangerous. Just as Elliot says they should prepare for anything, Hazel urgently shouts for him to stop and not enter the circle. A tiny squirrel suddenly appears inside the circle, surprising both Elliot and Hazel. The magic circle erupts in a blinding purple light, and Hazel screams in horror as Elliot is engulfed. They land in a sunny meadow, with the disoriented Hazel leaning against Elliot's chest, asking where they are. Cursing the spell's sudden activation, Elliot watches as a startled Hazel jolts away from him with an "Ah!" A glowing magic circle in the grass reveals its secret. It was triggered by saying the word squirrel. Noting the new circle isn't activating, Elliot concludes it must have a different trigger word. While Elliot stands guard, Hazel sits and brainstorms new trigger words like rabbit, snake, and acorn. Elliot hands Hazel a dagger for protection before suddenly collapsing, exhausted from their long journey. He ventures deeper into the strange, dense forest. Having finished copying the new circle, Hazel sees the setting sun and worries they can't make it back on foot. Elliot decides they need shelter for the night, pointing out fresh footprints he hopes belong to the circle's creator. Hazel nervously voices her hope that nothing bad happens, prompting a curious look from Elliot. She worries aloud about monsters or being stranded without shelter before catching herself. Elliot suddenly points, telling Hazel to look, which makes her jump in surprise. He reveals a cabin in the woods, and an annoyed Hazel yells at him for scaring her. Elliot sheepishly admits he just wanted to tease her, as she vows to never let him forget it. Stepping inside, they find the interior is a complete mess, and Elliot remarks that it's practically in ruins. He points out a hole in the roof, but Hazel cheerfully notes that the fireplace is still in good shape. A warm fire crackles to life under a stew pot, filling the cabin with light. Tasting her cooking, Hazel brightly states that at least they won't freeze or starve now. A close-up shows her eyes sparkling with delight. Watching her, Elliot can't help but smile warmly, touched by her optimism. He clenches his armored fist, wanting to express his gratitude. As a pan of food sizzles, Elliot's thoughts praise Hazel's cooking skills. Now, out of his armor, he eats, and thinks about how she effortlessly cleaned up the wrecked cabin. He looks at Hazel and tells her with admiration that she is really something else. Elliot compliments Hazel, saying she can do anything, but she modestly brushes it off. Elliot imagines an angry Luna complaining about him getting Hazel's stew all to himself, then thinks that Luca would probably cry. Hazel imagines a tearful Luca asking why only his brother gets to eat, and she wholeheartedly agrees. The two of them share a moment of heartfelt laughter together. As night settles, an owl watches over the lit cabin from a nearby branch. Hazel thinks to herself that even though the stew is delicious, she's feeling nervous. Hazel awkwardly reminds him of his high rank as a Grand Duke. She finds it strange that he's sitting on the floor, but Elliot calmly replies that it's clean now. Hazel insists other nobles would demand a proper seat, but Elliot reveals this is probably the cleanest spot he's ever sat. Completely shocked, Hazel asks what kind of life he has lived to make such a statement. Elliot questions Hazel about her cross-legged sitting posture. As Elliot kneels, asking if her position is uncomfortable, Hazel thinks his formal posture looks far more awkward and is reminded of her school days. Hazel shudders, recalling a painful memory of being punished by having to stand while holding her chair for an hour. Elliot chuckles softly, finding her sudden shift in mood to be so random. Hazel pauses mid-meal, her expression becoming serious. Trying to change the subject, Hazel asks Elliot if he remembers the young lady from Monet he danced with, and he confirms he does. Hazel explains that they are a good match due to their social status and appearance, but her words are met with Elliot's cold silence. Elliot turns away without a word, leaving the atmosphere heavy with unspoken tension. Internally panicking over the awkward mood she created, Hazel is relieved when Elliot announces they've finished eating and should arrange their sleeping spots. As Elliot declares it's time for bed, Hazel offers to finish cleaning in the morning. Elliot suddenly stops her, asking if she's hurt, and a confused Hazel looks up at his serious expression. He points to a scratch on his own hand, explaining that she must have gotten hurt while climbing a tree earlier. Realizing he's the one who is hurt, Hazel confidently holds out her palm and tells him to give her his hand. She quickly clarifies that she just wants to practice healing magic, and he can refuse if he's uncomfortable. Elliot slowly extends his injured hand toward her. Hazel closes her eyes in concentration as a warm, golden light begins to glow around her hands. The healing magic envelops Elliot's hand as he watches with a focused gaze. The next morning, they walk through the woods, with a fully armored Elliot looking particularly grim. Hazel worriedly asks if he's okay, and he bluntly replies, not at all, inwardly admitting he lost sleep just from holding her hand. Standing before the new magic circle, Elliot wonders aloud what the mage's purpose was here. Consulting with a small bird, Hazel reports that it saw an old man in a long robe head in a specific direction, surprising Elliot. Elliot asks if she can talk to birds, and she proudly confirms she can now communicate with any small animal. A thought strikes Elliot, and he asks if she can find an animal who knows the password, an idea Hazel declares is genius. They begin their search for information, offering an acorn to a wary squirrel. The search continues as Hazel cautiously peers around a tree, spotting a lizard. A small bird leads the way, and Hazel and Elliot hurry to follow it through the forest. Their chase ends in disappointment as they fail to learn what the mage said, with Hazel admitting it would have been incredible if they had succeeded. Hazel's spirits lift as she realizes they at least know the direction the mage went. Full of hope, she suggests that following the animal's directions might lead them to a discovery as they set off again. Elliot suddenly stops her with a, "Wait, this," prompting a curious "yes" from Hazel as she looks ahead. His expression darkens as he grimly remarks that they've made an unexpected find. They stand before a massive cliff, where a narration reveals the horrifying discovery of a man-eating bee's nest.